Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the UofT Esports Twitch channel. I hope you all are having a fantastic long weekend, and I know that we've got a pretty special showing coming up for you guys. Today, I'm going to be leading you. My name is Spaffles, joined by our fabulous co-caster, Na. Why don't you take it away?
Hi, I'm Na. Today we've got a great game on our hands. It's a quarterfinals, UofT versus Harrisburg University. I really think this is going to be a well-fought best of five.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the rosters especially, not to get too ahead of myself, but this is looking like it is going to be match of the season, right? And just looking at how far the UofT roster has come, I'm super excited and I'm super ready to just dive right into it. So why don't you lead us into our roster?
So some of the key matchups we notice here today is Notice in the top lane, starting us off. We've got CY Blood in jungle, Yumi Princess or Little Frosty in mid lane, Blancrease in ADC, and Laurent in support.
Yep, and they have, especially that bot lane, we've just seen them time and time again, the way that they're able to build their advantages, and the synergy between the jungle and the mid lane is just so impactful on the map. And having that roaming capability to either focus your top side or your bot side has been really influential and has been key to UofT's winning strategy so far. But enough about UofT, enough glazing. Let's head over to HU Storm, their opponents for tonight. Oh, starting us off, we've got Ego in the top lane, the pretty classic Asante pick. I took a bit of a peek at their op.gg, and they've been practicing it a lot. I actually have a pretty nice win rate on it too. Just a little bit of insight. We got Kid Beats on the jungle. Again, trying to keep up with the theme of the really aggressive jungling. There is proving to be a very good match for CY Blood, at least on paper. We'll see how that turns out in game. We got Duckman PH on the mid lane, and to match Blancrease and Laurent, we've got Mako and Barlow.
It's interesting to see their choices in the bot lane here, because once again, it looks like UofT is looking to play around their bot lane. That Kaisa Maokai looking like it might be a weak side pick, maybe a pick and scale pick. But I guess we'll just have to see how this game plays out.
Yeah, and just looking into it, right? You have two ways of playing around what UofT are trying to do. You can either try and match it with your jungler and try and force your bot side to be the strong side, or you can accept that UofT are going to be playing around their bot. You can kind of leave your bot lane a little bit out to dry, not too much, but just a little bit, and you can leverage your advantages through the top lane and try and take advantage up top to make sure that your top, your Cassante, your Fiora, your Jax, whoever it may be, becomes an absolute menace and just unkillable. Right? So it just becomes a battle of snowball versus snowball, and trying to see who can lead their team to victory first.
And bot laners hate to hear that, but sometimes you just have to play the weak side and do what it takes to get that win. And it looks like both teams are going to try to do what it takes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've all had those situations in solo queue before. I know, especially for myself as a support player, it can be a little frustrating when the jungler seems like to be nowhere. Like you cannot find them at all. But then you press tab, and you look at the scoreboard, and it's like, oh my god, wait, how does our Tryndamere have 20 kills and he's in their base? What the hell, right? Just like. It's important to recognize that sometimes that stuff does happen, and just because there are a lot of kills in one area of the map doesn't mean that the game is out of control or snowballing against a certain team. It could just all be calculated.
Yeah, not many people know this, Baffles, but League of Legends is actually a team game, I've heard, where you have to kill the enemy nexus instead of forcing kills for the entire game.
Nah, I mean, hey, forcing kills is a pretty decent strategy to win. I mean, we've all watched certain teams play, especially in LCK and LPL. those really kill hungry regions where you just see pick after pick after pick, and you got like 20 minutes or 20 minutes per 20 kills per 20 minutes in those level 1 invades and all that fancy stuff. But you can also win through gold leads, through securing objectives, through destroying those towers. And like you said, ultimately, nothing else matters when one nexus falls. Whoever gets that nexus is the victor at the end of the day, and everything else is just the lead up, the build up to it.
I'm actually hoping for one of those bloodbath games. So hopefully we've got some Chinese in the players tonight. We can get a high kill game, some pentakills maybe. Any predictions?
I don't know. I don't know exactly about the pentakills, because especially after Smolder's been nerfed and he's kind of his little wings have been snipped, it's not really that common anymore, because that execute was really, really strong, especially the way that it's scaled, basically giving Smolder a free Elder buff just permanently. Now that it's kind of settled, I don't think we're going to be seeing a pentakill tonight, but I do want a bloodbath of a game at the very least. We've seen picks that kind of accentuate that sort of play style. Like, that both of these junglers have a very, very good Volibear, and Volibear excels when the game just accelerates out of control, and the ability for his ultimate to crack down on turrets and disable them for 5, 6 seconds. Just it is able to completely destroy one lane's economy and either forcing them outright or just killing them altogether.
I think it's of note to actually notice what patch we're playing on, since you're talking about that Volibear. I've noticed in my solo queue games, Volibear is out of control. And I think likely some of these players are going to look to use some of those power deficits in their favor. I know I would want a Volibear in my top lane.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, well, yeah, Smolder has been nerfed. You're not really going to see, like, there weren't that many changes that affect the overall hierarchy of the system so far. Now we're about to lead into the draft phase. We got an early ban on Twisted Fate, seeing that HSU has obviously done a little bit of scouting. They know what they're playing into, and they know especially how dangerous Little Frosty's Twisted Fate roaming can be.
Definitely. And we were talking about this earlier, that sort of map presence that you get in an all-round team where you're able to, say, play around a bot lane with a TF ulti, play around a top lane with a TF ulti, and you can do it depending on who's winning, depending on where ganks are going, and really play this adaptive play style where a team can finally look like a team together.
Yeah, exactly. And as the ban phase is continuing to play out, we're seeing some pretty interesting ones, including a ban from UofT on the Volibear. They really want to make sure that this does not go over to blue side, as they do have the first pick. It is going to be a B1 Varus. What are your thoughts on Varus this patch?
I think it's an interesting pick. You really have to sort of make a team around it, I feel, because that lack of mobility, the high CCR, it makes for a good pick. But again, if you're not pairing it with a safe support, it makes for a very, very fragile lane.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's also a lot of different flavors of Varus. You've seen your on hits, your lethalities, even your AP from time to time. Although I don't think we're going to be expecting that tonight. There's just a lot of different ways that you can run them depending on the comp. Now, moving past the Varus, we got a little bit stun locked there. We got the Xin Zhao and Aphelios coming out R1, R2, followed up by Jackson Karma B2, B3. What are you, the way that this comp is working out, especially for blue side, I want to focus on that as we've got their 3 picks already. What are your thoughts on that?
It looks like a very skirmish heavy comp with the Karma and the Jax. They look like they want to take some scrappy fights in the jungle. Those Malignants looking really strong on that Karma, and when you get them in those tight packed areas, you can escape the Verisar, you can escape Jaxi, you can't escape Karma Mantra Q. And all that damage, all that CC piles up. And even if Aphelios goes cleanse here, which he likely has to, he's likely going to find himself hit with multiple, if not all of them at the same time. Yeah,
I mean, also, we cannot play down or downplay the value of Karma as your flex pick. Although picking Jax in the same round does kind of diminish that advantage a little bit. But you can still flex Karma between mid and support, and that puts UofT in a bit of an awkward spot when they're looking to target ban here. As you see, they're just doing a little bit of a scatter shot. They want to make sure Nico is off the board, followed up by Poppy, while HSU are getting rid of some of the more aggressive support picks. Yep, there you go. There's your Rakan and your Lulu to back them up.
It's interesting to me to see how much Harrisburg seems to be placing importance on that support pick. Looks like they're trying to eliminate that Rakan, that Lulu, that pairs very well with the Aphelios, pushes them further into that stacking. And instead, we see here the Nautilus pick by UofT on the bot lane to support that Aphelios. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Nautilus is pretty interesting. He's a pretty good hook support, as well as just the ability to point and click with his R. Just make sure that those targets do get stunned unless they have a form of invulnerability, unless they have Zhonya's. They will become stunned and they will stop in their place, and that opens a lot of opportunity, especially for the RE affiliate Sinjao to follow up and kind of explode on that target. Now we are seeing that Karma is flexed into the mid lane as Alistar gets picked for HU, followed up by Gragas. You saw they were hovering a little bit of Leona. They weren't very sure of which way they were going to take it, but Alistar is a pretty good choice, all things considered, being his ability to either Q flash and completely stun a target with no counterplay, or to knock people away, or to do his regular combos, and also his tankiness that's provided to him through his ultimate. There's just so much survivability in a comp where you already have a lot. I mean, those Karma shields are going to be massive.
I have to say as well, they have quite the diversity in CC options as well. Because if you think about it, that Aphelios goes cleanse, he can only really affect Varus R, Jacked E. The rest of them are knockups or knockbacks, which, as you know, do not get affected by tenacity nor cleanse. And so he's going to be getting hit by that Alistar combo no matter what he wants.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, combo that in with the Gragas into Aatrox in the top lane. I mean, what are your thoughts on how that matchup is going to play out? Because we know that top is usually an island. Who do you think is going to have the advantage there?
As a support main myself as well, I feel like I have less knowledge in top lane matchups. But in the most recent patch notes, I've seen some people questioning whether Gragas deserves the power he has right now. Just the same as whether Aatrox is in the right spot. So I think it's a very volatile lane where even though they have such hyper carries bot lane, top lane is just as viable.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if they do end up deciding to put the Jax up top, I'm not sure if that's exactly what they're going to be playing around. But Jax as well, if he's able to accelerate, he can take control of the game entirely. That's a lot of win conditions stacked towards the top half of the map. And that's really something you do want to be aware of, especially because, yes, your Aphelios can take over a match when he's ahead. But with the way that HU have set up their composition, it kind of feels like he's going to have a very tough time finding his way into this one.
Definitely, as Jax has the no auto attacks ability, as they set up into both Xin Zhao and Aphelios heavy on the auto attacks, it looks like Harrisburg is playing a Jax funnel comp, where each lane has CC to set up easy Jax ganks.
Yeah, and I mean, CC is something that I don't even think Jax needs in spades, because he does have his own. He does have Counter Strike, right, to enable himself, but just Gragas CC or Karma CC or an Alistar combo, combine that with Jax, and then Jax continues to the stun train onwards. I mean, there is little to nothing that you can do, and especially looking at UofT's lanes, with the exception of potentially the Ahri, who will have access to 3 dashes at level 6, you're looking very vulnerable to those ganks, and seeing that Jax either power farm or decide to focus a lot on those ganks and try and lead in gold and kills is going to be a lot of action. I'd say centered around him. Yeah.
Definitely. I think if I'm even going to go out on a limb here, I think the game might be decided on what happens in the jungle between Xin Zhao and Jax, whether one side is able to counter jungle and eliminate that power farming possibility, or even, like you mentioned, get some ganks, get some kills, get ahead, and then all of a sudden you don't need that power farming. You can just farm champions.
Yeah, exactly. I like that, farming the champions. And it is also, I mean, once we get into the late game, like I want to. So the difference between the late game and the early game comps is HU can afford to be a little bit behind in this match. They can be 2-3K gold behind because they do have a scaling late game composition. Meanwhile, UofT, they're kind of buying their time here. And unless they're able to lead in terms of golds, they're going to have a very, very difficult match later on. I'm not saying it isn't possible, but even if they are leading by 1 or 2 kills, I would consider that a lot more of a neutral situation rather than the gap that I might seem on paper.
Definitely. I would actually be terrified as a Nautilus going into a Alistar past 20, 30, maybe even 40 minutes. You just feel absolutely useless and just an R bot. Like nothing you can do other than CC.
Mm-hmm. A smooth little transition there. Thank you, Mr. Producer Mans. And it is looking like we're not going to be seeing too much action early. No, both teams opting out of the invade, going to play very safe initially. It's like our Gragas and Aatrox are just going to say hello to each other off the bat.
Good top lane greeting. You know, some people say the top lane has a certain honor. I question that at times, but we see them trading blows as they do here. No one's really getting ahead. Maybe Gragas likes this a little more because he can regen. Same with Aatrox, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, they both do have those regeneration passives, although I would argue that Gragas's is a lot more potent in lane.
You do have to question as well, though, does mana become an issue? Because Aatrox can get that healing just for free, just for autoing every couple seconds.
Yep, fair enough. And it looks like we're getting a little bit of action early in the bot lane. You saw that Nautilus landed a pretty nice hook, took a little bit of a health off of Alistar, and that's the kind of lead that you need, especially while your Aphelios does have the sniper gun, to make sure that you take those poke trades when you can and try and force the Alistar Varus combo out of that lane. Now, mid lane also a little uneventful. Both Ahri and Karma, very effective at neutralizing each other, and they are both able to, farm the waves pretty efficiently.
Definitely. I think while Karma has some really strong early game with that level 1 R, it really comes down to that Malignance and that burn and the items that she's able to stack because of that pressure from it. Just becomes like this oppressive lane where you're also able to support your jungle and your mid and top, your top and bot just as easily.
Yeah, I agree. Now, as we're seeing, both junglers are starting to path bot lane. We're probably going to see some sparks start to fly after they get each of their bottom half of the jungles cleared. At top lane, not too much is going on. Like we mentioned before, it is very sustain heavy. They both have a lot of healing. They're both making sure that they're topped up. Not expecting to see any solo kills, especially as both of them did take TP. But who knows? We might see a little bit of action fly there as well. Ooh, nice charm landed from the Ahri. Gonna force Karma to low HP. Not really out of the lane quite yet, though, however, because she does have pots and the added shielding as well. Gonna negate enough poke to keep her in this for now. Alistar going for an early roam in case Ahri does decide to walk up. Karma gonna try and deny the back. Does not know where the Ahri is, so she is gonna get away scot-free. And Gragas fighting himself on the wrong side of Aatrox's Q.
Looks like there's coming out to be quite an ebb and flow between the two teams. They moving between each other's jungle. Support's looking to get vision here before they reset for Dragon. It looks like everyone's building to this one giant fight around Dragon.
Yeah, it's all very smooth, all very calculated. HU are making sure that they play back and they respect the early advantage that UofT does have. Nice little freeze there from the Ahri, trying to make sure that the wave does not crash and trying to deny minions from Karma. While the top lane, Ego is trying to push his wave out as much as he can. Oh, cheeky little trade. Alistar goes a little deep, but is able to walk away just fine, not going to stay long enough to get the Easton off.
I will say something that may come into play here. That is half health on the Aphelios as compared to half health on the support Alistar. So if they're looking to fight here for Dragon, Aphelios has quite a few fewer pots than he did just a couple seconds ago.
Yeah, and I mean, Mountain Drake is a very nice dragon to have, even this early in the game. Having that extra amount of HP, or effective HP, is very nice, and a solid combo from the Alistar. Comboed that with an Ignite, and all, even with the Flash, even with the Cleanse, Aphelios is not able to run with his life. That's first blood over to HU. Can he make it 2? Oh, that lethal tempo is ramped up, and yes, it's 2. 2 for the Alistar, but 2 nonetheless. He's going to accelerate towards his first item, and Alistar is going to be one tanky cow. CY Blood getting chased out of his own jungle as well. Things are just out of control.
Yeah, and things are really heating up for that UofT bot lane. You see that, just as I mentioned, that lack of HP in Aphelios makes him for an easy target, and Alistar can just jump right on him, doesn't care about anything else, doesn't care about the damage that's going to come back, because of course, Nautilus can't do as much damage as a Varus just running at you.
Yeah, exactly. And just that combo was executed very, very well. Nice little dash there from RA, seizing that level 6 prio, making sure that both sides of the queue land. Duckman so low, but manages to get away just before the Nautilus hook lands. It is looking like a little bit of a counter gank angle. Alistar with a nice combo. Counter-strike flash from Jax. Oh no, Yuumi. Oh, manages to make it out with just a sliver of HP. Now Alistar is the one who's in trouble.
And we see the counter to the counter gank. The skirmishes here really coming into full strength. Everyone's looking to fight. Objectives are up. UofT somehow comes out on top and is able to get the dragon here. Really miscalculated scuffle here by Harrisburg. Was looking like they were coming out on top on all accounts, and yet they still managed to lose the dragon and lose the Alistar kill, putting UofT back in it.
Yeah, and that also the shutdown going over to Ari, that is very, very nice. Like, just how we got done mentioning how Alistar is accelerated by those 2 kills, I mean, the same thing will apply exactly to Ari, is that it gives her enough gold for both the Lost Chapter and Tier 1 boots, as well as a little bit of CDR. It's a lot to deal with, especially as the Karma, while you're still building up, you don't have that amount of expendable mana to spend, then you're going to be put at a little bit of a back foot.
Speaking of a back foot, UofT bot lane having to concede some space on those minions bot lane, while Jax gets the final Void Grub top lane. I'm sure he's happy about getting all 3 there.
Yep.
And looks like, I know I would want to, looks like he might want to leverage that into 5, maybe 6 Void Grubs to get those Void Grubs spawning on towers.
Yeah, I mean, 3 Void Grubs early on, that is very, very nice for you and your team. Everybody gets the extra little bit of damage towards the towers, and then it also sets you up very nicely for, like you said, the 5 to 6 Void Grubs, making sure that those Void Buddies start spawning on towers, start hitting them, they start tanking turret shots for you and your minions. There's a lot of extra utility, and that's something that UofT probably will not want to hand over, even if it is at the cost of another Drake.
That is especially as both teams have double TP on their top and mid laners, making for this game to be likely a long split push, tower break-in endeavor.
Ooh, we have a skirmish again, bot lane. Nautilus just not feeling it. Mr. Krabs a little far away from his flash, but gets caught by the early level 6. Varus ults evidently was used probably to catch him off, especially while he was going for one of those Hex Flash plays out of the bush.
And I think those ultis may end up being the difference, as you can see here.
Aphelios is in a bit of trouble. Nautilus coming back, but he doesn't have level 6 yet, doesn't have that R to take advantage of, and Aphelios does fall. Landcries not too happy about that one, and Nautilus is just sitting there trying to soak him out as much XP as possible. It's going to be a 3v4 bot lane if they do decide to take it. Yep, that's the smart choice, to just back away, accept your losses, and move on forward. Now, Aphelios going to get, he's especially set back now because Varus has Blade of the Ruined King completed. That is his first item. That is the first item of this match. Now, Sorry, you go ahead.
Definitely a scary item to have as the Flash comes in from Notice in the top lane, looking to put his team on his back, saying, no, I don't care if we lose bot lane, we're winning this game.
Yeah, and I mean, that was just one of those famine over a long amount of time kills, where you saw that Gregus was starting to get low on HP, he was starting to lose a lot of mana, and just Aatrox recognizing that, he was able to take advantage of his of the lane state and make sure that he's able to secure that kill. Now, Lane tries to get his flash forced out. This is a really, really scary place to be as an Aphelios, especially when the wave is shoved in this far. You are going to be playing, you're walking on eggshells, basically. And any time that Alistar, especially when his flash is up, anytime Alistar decides that you want to die, you will die. Thankfully, though, CY Blood making sure to come by, making sure that the lane is going to be shoved all the way to tower. Oh, but Alistar is able to tank it just a little bit longer and maintain that freeze. This is a very, very bad spot for the UofT bot lane. Does look like a 3v3 skirmish is going to break out as Jax makes it here on time. CY Blood gets stunned. And no explosive front-to-front action quite yet.
I think it's worth noting as well, the summoner choices on both supports. We can see the Glacial on the Nautilus versus the Aftershock on the Alistar. As we can see here, that makes it effectively impossible to engage on the Alistar, because as soon as Nautilus Qs him, Alistar's just going to Q back and get double his resistances and be able to just walk right out of there. Whereas Nautilus can't do the same thing. The only option for him is to Q to a wall and pull himself out of the bad situations he's in. And yet, that has still come out poorly for him twice already.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, while it has been a little bit accustomed that Alistar is the sacrificial cam, I got stuck somewhere between cow and lamb. But being the sacrificial cow, being the one who engages fights, making sure that Aftershock is available, he guarantees his survival just a little bit longer, and combined with his ultimate, it gets him a lot more time. And there you go, Barlow with a nice stun onto CY Blood. We thought he caught himself off guard, and Kid Beat's getting taken down very, very fast. Jax is not able to hang with the pressure, especially after his Counter-Strike does fall. Barlow, though, nice little flash, but not able to secure it, and double kill, triple kill for UofT. Man, that was a bloody fight.
And interestingly enough, I actually thought...
Nice flash E from
flash.
the Ahri, just making sure that Charm Bars lock him down and secure that shutdown. That's an extra 150 gold on the bank. And if you're looking at this, Ahri looking mighty fine. That Malegnant's already completed and going to be scaling towards second item.
I would even say it's more than 150 gold bounty. Varus still has his flash up, and which means he was just outplayed. So if anything, it's the morale and emotional damage that is getting the extra.
Exactly. Now Kid Beat's running straight back to the bot lane after that. He's like, nope, I want to get my revenge. Yumi Princess getting taken down very low, but the nice charm flash from Jackson secure the kill, gets the shutdown, and that was a massive one. That was 550 gold. So, all that talk we had before, all those advantages, pretty much nullified as Jax is able to get that. He had his Thunder Sky already, which gave him the extra damage boost that he needed. And even though he had to expend flash for it, that's another 850 gold just right for the taking.
And it brings the gold deficit almost back to a 1,000 difference. And I think that really means a lot for when you're gearing up for these important objectives, for Void Grubs, for 3rd, 4th Drake, where you can't be just giving up objectives anymore. You have to fight for them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Void Grub, CY Blood, making sure that he's going to at least give Kid Beats a fight, making sure that UofT don't go down quietly when it comes to those 6 Void Grubbies. Now, Michael getting a nice little push in, making sure to hit the tower to proc the extra Void Grub damage. But Yumi Princess is there to catch the wave, and Nautilus is going to be rotating mid to catch his Aphelios.
It looks as though they might think that Aphelios is struggling a little in the bot lane. Maybe he looks a little fragile, a little vulnerable to those ganks, and why Ahri seems to be picking up those waves in the bot lane to counter maybe a dive, maybe a all-in by Varus with his ulti.
Yeah.
I think UofT are looking to adapt and be flexible to the challenges they're facing, and they look to be moving into this game maybe even better than Harrisburg.
Yep. Now, UFT's jungler, oh, he was on the Void Grubs. I'm not too sure if he caught one. It doesn't look like he caught any while the Rift Herald does spawn, making sure that the aggro gets reset, running away, making sure nothing happens a little too fast. You're 2 Drakes up, 2 minutes and 30 seconds away from Cloud Drake. You're going to want everything you have for that fight.
Mm-hmm. I was actually interested. How do you feel about this trade between top objectives and bottom objectives? Would you feel more comfortable with those 6 grubs, or do you feel more comfortable with the Drake advantage looking into what is going to be a Cloud Soul?
Yeah, I mean, Cloud Soul especially, not that big. I wouldn't cry about it, but I would still be upset if the enemy team was able to stack those Drakes, and especially that the Hextech and the Mountain Drake that they were able to secure early, giving them a lot of bonus attack speed, a little bit of armor, a little bit of ability haste. That is very, very nice, and that's something we would have definitely wanted, but signing up for this signing up for the long haul like HU did, you kind of just got to give those creature comforts away and try and trade them for, the longer term, making sure that your team can go into the late game. And that Rift Herald is going to further assist them with that goal. Jax is going to probably drop that on the opposite side of the map soon, heading into the next objective.
I think it's actually interesting how both teams have sort of played around their own interests within the game. How Harrisburg would much rather that sort of split skirmish team composition, and of course that lends itself very well to Void Grubs. Whereas UofT, on the other hand, has a much more pick comp with that Nautilus, allowing them Nautilus and Ari, I should say, allowing them sort of a group mentality and all jump on one guy sort of play style.
Yeah, I mean, both these teams, they know exactly what they signed up to do. They know what they drafted, and they're going to play to those strengths. And it looks like everything is going to come up to a head. 45 seconds until Cloud Drake. Both teams are staging. It is going to be a 4-on-4, potentially a 5-on-5, because both top laners do have their TPs. They are ready to assist if needed. And this is going to be a pretty make or break moment for the match as the Drake is spotted.
I'd like to note some of the item differences. Top lane, both on same items, whereas mid lane, already an item up from UofT as we get in the engage on Nautilus.
Yep, Alistar making use of that cleanse on his ultimate, making sure that the charm does not send him too far. Nice little flash R, but there is no follow-up to help with that. Alistar, who burnt his aftershock earlier, not able to sustain at all. Notice with the flash Q3, nice little damage there, but he's going to get taken out. And that's a nice charm onto Karma as well. Ari with a double, Ari with a triple. Can you make that 3? You can make that 4. Nice little quadra kill, and Aphelios just kind of stealing the penta, but that's okay. We'll prove it just this once. You gotta carry with it later, though.
Now, we didn't get that penta I was talking about earlier, but damn, a quadra is just as close as you can get. Little Frosty picking up 4 kills in that team fight with unbelievable damage, carrying his team from that Lichbane and Malignance, which was burning them the entire time. They pick up the 3rd Drake, putting them in a great position.
Yep, now you're looking at the situation, you're surveying everything, and you're going, okay, no, UofT, they're up to 2.3k gold, they have 3 kills, they have 3 Drakes, they are a prime situation, they're in a prime spot to escalate this game even further and try to close this out before 30 minutes. Meanwhile, on HU's side, they're kind of going, okay, what is working, what is not working, we got to reconfigure this. Your Varus is still 40 CS up, does still have 4 more kills than Aphelios. How can we leverage that to our advantage, and how can we make sure that we are pushing those leads as far as we possibly can? Because, I mean, Varus, he did do a lot in that last fight, right?
I think a key dynamic to explore is how the game has changed post-laning phase. Now that we've got all these champions moving around, Aphelios no longer stuck to the bot lane, no longer getting dove by the enemy jungler. They can actually play around these picks, and UofT is finally playing the game that they want to play.
Yeah, exactly. And this is their prime power spike. This is the mid-game power spike that these champions are drafted for. Champs like Ari, like Nautilus, like Zinzhou. This is their prime stage, and nice charm from Ari as well. Just look at that go. Ego dropped almost to half HP just off of one simple combo. That is especially scary, and I will also note that Ari does have Seeker's Arm Guard, making sure that she cannot get bursted as easily with that stopwatch effect.
It looks like it might play out to be a protect the Ari, play around the Pix comp, as that charm, that Q, that R looking incredibly powerful on Little Frosty. May I even say overpowered?
I won't. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it is certainly strong, and but with such a strong laner, such a strong player behind it, you can really leverage those advantages that Ori can provide you. With those very simple but effective abilities that she does have. Her E straight line, her ultimate is just 3 dashes. Her Q is just another it's a line and back. But the way that you apply those abilities and the ways that you use them, that really makes the difference between one RA player to the next. And looking at Karma with her Bandle Glass Mirror, looking like she's about to start scaling pretty nicely pretty soon. Nautilus, he thought he saw something, but no, all he saw was his demise. Get taken down pretty low. Nice little stun from the Karma. And CY Blood trying to follow him up, but no. He gets taken down almost immediately. Notice on a tear. Gonna find the kill. Nope. Not able to get another, though. No resets for you. And Ego as well taken low. That's going to be a Baron angle, and it doesn't look like UofT have anybody left to contest. Oh, Ari can technically do something about it, but she would rather take mid turret and open up the map just a little bit more for her team, and rather than risking dying and giving that bounty over.
And yet, once again, we see that goal differential creep right back down to virtually zero as Harrisburg University gains a mere 600 gold lead off of that, putting the game pretty much back at neutral for whoever can get the next pick, especially with Cloud Drake Soul coming up for UofT.
Yep, 1 minute and 20 seconds and counting remaining on this Soul Point Dragon. You're looking at the item situation on both teams, and you're wondering, okay, who wants to fight this? Who has the advantage? And can we contest? Can we drag this out? And can we get those key power spikes? Right? Because looking at UofT, they have pretty much all completed their second items, and Ari is working towards her third right now. Meanwhile, over for HU, they have a lot of their power spikes, and power spike they will with nice charm into hook combo onto Alistar, bringing him down very, very low, virtually 1 HP, taking completely out of the fight. He does have 45 seconds remaining, though, so he's going to be able to recall and come back. Although this does open up an opportunity for them to seize that scuttle, make sure that they have that permanent, unmovable vision in the river, and setting themselves up further for that soul.
You also have to notice that Aatrox in the top lane getting tower, getting CS while everyone wasn't noticed. And also, while he didn't have TP, that Harrisburg University did not know that they could engage a 5v4 there. Instead, give up Prio to have vision of probably the most important dragon in the game, bar Elder Drag.
Yep, now Aatrox just given it enough time to leisurely walk down there with his Knight's Vow up, making sure that he's looking fabulous while also protected. As Barlow tries to act as the team's frontline, Ego gets hooked, but he's going to be able to walk away pretty unscathed. Nice little engage from Jax, getting the stun off. Notice just melting away like butter. Nautilus finding a return kill, but oh no, Varus with 2. Can he make that 3? Landkreis is pretty ramped up, has all of those chakrams floating around him, gets a lot of damage potentially. Oh my god, Barlow getting taken down to just barely 1 HP. CY Blood as well, just with the spike contest, he's able to try and secure it. Nope, they just, okay, reset. We're going to re-evaluate our situation. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to live to fight another day. No point in throwing our lives at this Drake, not just yet.
Now, do you think we're beginning to see that power curve you were talking about, where Harrisburg University looks to play for that late game scaling Varus Jax power potential?
Well, yeah, I especially do think we are, with Varus hitting his 3rd item potentially on recall. He did secure another 2-3 kills. Yep, there you go. There's his 3rd item. Really head and shoulders above the competition, making sure that he is ahead. Meanwhile, We're going to be seeing a little bit of inaction on the other side. Xin Zhao still struggling his way towards his second item. He's almost there, but not quite. This is, and also I do want to mention the Karma. Karma getting her way towards third item. That is a massive power spike as well. Just getting that AP, comboing that with the Australias, making sure that those shields are pretty big. That will be able to help them sustain even further, and it will make it infinitely more difficult for UofT to get those picks.
I have to say, especially talking about those picks, Ari still managed to hit a charm on Varus that fight, and yet they still could not close him down. And while Ari can scale for more damage, more potential, Karma is always going to be useful with that mantra shield, with that individual shield, with all that peel potential that they can have for their carries. So no matter what, while Ari may get scaled out of this game, Karma is going to stay influential and important to this final comp.
Yeah, exactly. And just like you mentioned, even though Ari did not have the damage already, Varus wants to play incredibly safe as he picked up a Negatron cloak, spending that 900 gold to make sure that there is no way for Ari to one-shot him. That is a pretty safe buy. All right, now walking up a little bit, Landcry is gonna tempt fate a little bit, meeting Makel in the mid lane, giving him a little smooch before walking backwards. They are posturing a little bit aggressively, making sure that they are able to continue to starve CY Blood of his resources, of his jungle, making sure that they're not able to walk their way back into the game, and leading with a pretty dominant vision game, as you can see that assortment of wards, really locking them out.
It also looks like UofT are opting to place that pressure in the bot side, push in on that tier 2 tower, and hopefully put the advantage towards Aatrox to get solo killed.
All right, now we got a little cheeky replay coming in of the last team fight. We're going to be able to walk it back. We see the early hook deep into the Greg. It's not going to secure a kill just
now
yet.
Look at that. Varus, as soon as he gets out of that CC, he is hitting them constantly. No interruptions, constant auto attacks, and the charm, and yet they can get nothing out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can just see how desperate the situation becomes so quickly at that, being that it's just not...
It's not really enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not enough. It's too little, too late. The Ari charm did come out, but Varus had already melted about 1 to 2 people at that point. At that point, you're just all about your retreat. You want to get out of there. You want to reset, and you're going to want to regroup for the next fight.
And I don't even think that's the type of fight UofT want to take anyways, because anyway, their 5v5s, as we've known before, is weaker than Harrisburg's University. They need to look for that pick. They need to look for that 5v1 in the jungle that they're not expecting to even get the opportunity to get the upper hand in a fight.
Yep. Now we're going to see a sort of a replay of what happened before. We're going to see them go back at it again in the bot lane. Aatrox running it, trying to make sure that he's collecting those waves, that he has that tower pressure, and to try and split the focus of HU and make sure that they don't power scale too hard. Right? He did die before, but he is coming back. He does have his third item now, and regrouping with the team, especially as Drake is spawning in 20 seconds, he's looking like he's pretty suited up for this fight.
I think it's interesting here that they're opting to path around topside, sort of indicating that they're willing to give away that next Drake if they're able to trade it for a Baron, sort of putting them back into the game, and yet they still give out this tier 2 tower, giving them a whole bunch of gold while Ari takes theirs in the top lane. What do you think about this trade?
Well, I mean, the mid tier 2 is so influential on the entire course of the game. I mean, that just removes so many safe spaces for UofT and prevents them from playing around their jungle camps. And they are not going to be able to contest these at all. And it does look like HU are going to abandon the Drake in order to match the Baron. And UofT were pretty comfortable with flipping or with trading 1 for 1, but no, they do not want that. HU want everything, and it looks like they're going to stun They're going to just stun lock the Nautilus, make sure that he's unable to play the game. And a nice steal from Jax, followed up by a kill, followed up by 2 kills, making sure that, yep, okay, that's it. They've scaled, they've got it, they're here. It beats. What have you done?
And here we have sad little ADC main. What has happened to my role? Getting run down by the 7 and 4 Jax, saying, "Get back here, we want everything."
Yeah, and almost right on cue, 30 minutes. It looks like HE are going to try and press their advantage as far as possible to end this game as they can. Greg is going to take those tower shots, make sure that those minions survive. That empowers them to do so much more damage to the towers. Meanwhile, Ahri is just plonking away, trying to just dissuade them as far as she can. Nope, not enough. And HU with a pretty nice round. I mean, that was pretty textbook. You could see their comps, you saw what they wanted to play around, and they just did it, step by step by step. It was almost like you were looking at a manual.
Yeah, instructional execution even from Harrisburg University there. I think that might be an indicator for this whole set. Maybe the gameplay divides between the two teams and how they look at the game may end up being the difference between who wins and who loses this entire set.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even looking at the post-game graphs, you've got 26k damage for Varus. Meanwhile, Ahri also had 25.8k. So they had virtually the same amount of damage dealt, but the way that it was spread and the way that Varus was he was just starting to scale. It would just continue to get more and more and more powerful as the game went on. You can see that that was the tipping point, and there was really no coming back. Even if they were able to squeak out that Baron fight, it was just the scaling was just going to continue on.
And you have to think about consistency here, where UofT sort of faltered with their game plan sort of a quarter way into the game there, where they had the lead. They had the picks that they needed to press their advantage, and yet they faltered, and they allowed those picks to go to waste. They allowed Harrisburg University to come back into the game, to close the gold advantage, to get that Baron, and to eventually outscale them into the mid-late game and push them completely out of the game, completely out of the objectives that they were hoping to get, and destroy their Nexus.
Yeah, and you saw the power spikes that they were going for. You saw how they gave the first 2 Drakes. And then, you saw Rod of Ages pop for Gragas. You saw Karma hit 2 items. You saw Varus get his 3rd. And then just start building tank items, right? He finished off the game with a Chain Vest as well as a Negatron Cloak in his inventory. And combine that as well with Alistar, with a Locket and the Knight's Vow. I mean, there's just not really much you can do against this, peel for the Varus, everybody around the Varus comp. That also, everyone in their own right did have a lot of damage, right? As much as you want to say, okay, this was all Varus's game, you saw the Gragas, you saw the Karma, you saw the Jax, they all had their moments, and they all did, carry their own weight and more.
I think it's definitely interesting to think about the level of consistency and ease of piloting that the two teams really had to deal with in that game, where UofT really struggled with that composition, and where even if one person was picked, it put their entire game plan into jeopardy. Whereas Harrisburg University, sure, they had some difficult moments in the beginning of the game, but their ability to skirmish and play around any one of their individual carries made the game much, much easier for them to play around.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it wasn't a matter of the players themselves and the characters. It wasn't a matter of that interface going wrong, of those players not being comfortable in the characters. You saw everybody really playing to pretty much their max potential on the characters, but it was a matter of, draft kind of penciling them in, and they weren't able to make advantage of that red side counter pick role, either if it wasn't, or it was either because of their champion pool not being big enough, or they just didn't have the correct counter picks. They just weren't able to match what blue side was picking, and getting stuck in this circle where they don't quite have the early game prowess that they needed, but they also didn't quite have the late game to compete. So they were kind of stuck in this limbo in the middle ground where, they were able to take a little bit of an advantage around 20 minutes, but then at 30 they were outscaled, and at 10 minutes they just didn't have the raw power that they needed.
I'd be interested to see, like you mentioned, if these issues of raw power are something they look to fix in the next game, whether their
Yeah.
bot lane, which ended up around 1-4-0-4, whether they look to change those characters, whether they look to play around another lane. If they feel as though bot lane isn't winning, maybe they
Mhm.
look to play around that Aatrox top lane. Maybe they look to play that hyper carry top lane, maybe a Jax, maybe a Rek'Sai, maybe a Volibear if they leave it open. I think it really all comes down to this next draft and to see how both teams react to that win. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
just as much as UofT could look to come back, Harrisburg University could leave their strategy unchanged and realize that they have a counter.
yeah. I mean, yeah, looking into the next map, peering into my crystal ball a little bit, predicting what's going to happen, I can imagine that UofT are probably going to want to take blue side, and they're going to want to make plays based off of that. We saw before Karma got her way through the ban phase just out of the just the sheer power of the other picks. The other, whether you want to call them one tricks or comfort picks, whichever word picks your fancy. Um, like making sure that UFT had to ban the volley bear. They had to ban stuff like the twisted fate. They were forced into a corner where they didn't have any left over for the karma, and karma was able to slip through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean,
And
I don't think that's something that's going to happen again. Sorry.
I, I, I definitely think it's a variable choice for UofT here because they have to weigh their options between what their game plan was coming into it and whether that all goes out the window. I mean, you have that quote, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. It looks like UofT have been punched in the face. And
Hmm.
how they're going to adapt to that may be the end to this series.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to write anyone off just yet. We've still got a action-packed special coming up, but I do
Mm-hmm.
want to send us off to a quick break, just kind of re gather ourselves, and we'll come back to you guys as soon as the teams are ready. We'll see you guys. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You know, it's been a few minutes, but hi, hello. It's still me, and he's still him, or he's still him. I think.
I don't know why my camera's
anyways,
mirrored.
anyways, we're coming back at you guys. We're in the middle of the action-packed series. We got Itchy Storm taking the lead. Storming off in first place with the 1-0 advantage, but we have a draft coming up pretty soon. And let's see if perhaps there was any that map probably served as a little bit of a wake-up call. Right? We want to see what those adjustments were, if there were any, and I want to see some sort of self-reflection. Right? What are things that you can see that they could improve on? Right? Either UofT or HE Storm, whichever one picks your fancy.
Mm-hmm. And I think we'll see that reflected really early, even just in the bans, how each team bans may decide how they feel, may show, I should say, how they felt about last game, whether they thought, perfect, we'll just play exactly how we did last game, just play better, or whether they think a new strategy, new bans, maybe shake up either team a bit would benefit them.
Yeah,
really test their champion pool.
Yeah, I mean, there are two ways of doing it. You can either go, hell yeah, we won that map, let's run it back, we'll do the exact same thing. Or it's like, okay, we won that map, how about we just pivot to something completely different? We're going to do a little bit of parkour, and we're going to go, okay, instead of a late game skill and comp, we'll go early game, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that, we'll throw them off their game, and we're going to make sure that whatever they're planning, that's all that information is going to be outdated because we're not going to do that again. Right, and that sort of ability to flip on a dime, we might not see it for map 2, but we might see it in a match point, and that's important to look out for and be wary of. And these teams often have those pocket picks, those strategies that they are saving for a special occasion, and especially with single elimination playoffs, this is a special occasion, right?
Definitely. As a quarterfinals, you can really see these teams have the opportunity to really get stuck into this set, really learn how each other plays, learn the matchups between the individual players, and play as a team composition, which can ultimately show which team is the better.
Yeah. I mean, now heading into the banning phase, let's see if any lessons were learned. UofT starting off on blue side. Gonna get first ban and first pick, making sure that Senna is taken off the board. Yep, we haven't really seen any Senna plays so far from UofT this season. As this playoffs run at the very least, right? And making sure that that's off the board is very good, because that enables a lot of those weird big tank comps like the Ornn or your Maokai's or whatever that are allowed to farm in the bot lane that really ruin your day, especially later on. Now it's going to be matched. Sorry, you go ahead.
You can also immediately see that Varus taken out of the way. That UofT have decided, we don't want to deal with that Varus. Get it out of here. We'd rather see you pick another champion. Prove that you can do it on more than just Varus.
Yep, and there you go. Volibear slips through, making sure to block that in right away. That is one of UofT's favorite champs, and for good reason. That power, that early game prowess, that is so good. Now it looks like HU are, we're going to run it back. We got Karma Jax, R1, R2, making sure that those are our picks. And now Jax, again, a very powerful flex pick. It can be either top or jungle, making sure that even if you don't pick your second one of those two in the early phase, it'll be very hard to get banned out of your later on phases.
I definitely think that change up in the top lane can really benefit UofT. As we saw last game, that Aatrox split push just isn't as good as some other top lane characters. You would much rather get in there in that team fight, get resets on his ultimate, get that AoE Q healing, really fight for the team. Whereas this Volibear much would rather prefer skirmishes, ulting under towers, 2 or 3 people, taking those fights and pushing their advantage away from those team fights, and maybe playing opposite to what that pick comp was last time. And you see that especially with the Nautilus pick from Harrisburg University, whereas UofT last game was looking to make moves with that long Q, that impossible to dodge ultimate. Harrisburg University are instead opting to pick that themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Nautilus is a very, very powerful pick, especially as an answer to Lucian and Milio. Right, Milio can pick any one piece of CC to negate, but that's only one. It's one and done, and then after that, Lucian is open season, right? And especially because Lucian has a lot of a shorter range and a lot of other ADCs, he's going to be a lot closer range and going to be very much more susceptible, especially with the Nautilus. If he can land those hooks, oh boy, Landkreis is going to be in for a rough match.
And to mention, there is nothing Lucian can do about that Nautilus R, even with Emilio ultimate, even with a cleanse, even with a QSS. Yeah. There is nothing that can bring you back down to earth once you've been knocked up.
Yep, Roger that. And it looks like Jinx is going to follow up the Nod. That's a pretty powerful combo, although Jinx does like to be played with a lot of Enchanter supports. That's okay. She can do just as fine as is. It's playing it as more of a reset champion, making sure that after those first kills do happen, she's able to use her passive procs to escalate the fight further and secure the win for her team. Follow that up by Gnar, again, making sure that UofT are going to be the proactive ones this game. They are going to go, they're going to take this lead, and they're going to try and do as much with it as possible before the Karma, before the Jax, before the Jinx can fully scale up. And as an insurance policy, just to make sure that nothing goes a little too astray, they do have the Aurelion Sol as well. He's a decent mid-game, but he is going to excel in the late game when he does have those stacks.
Definitely. And I find it really interesting that both teams are sort of taking a different approach here. While Harrisburg University still has that hyper carry with the Karma mid able to support her, it looks like UofT is opting for more of a easier late game scaling, split push, dynamic, flexible team comp where they've got a little bit of everything. They're able to not falter maybe as hard in the bot lane, maybe be able to win lane even with that Lucian Milio, who is so strong in those 2v2s. And maybe leave that prowess on the individual team players to pick up that slack and say, no, we're better, we can just win this game.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with the Camille pick, you can see that HEO are like, okay, fine, we see your Gnar, we see your ranged top laner, we want to match this and we want to fight. We're not going to give you this lane, we're not going to pick something passive. We are here for the long haul, and especially with the Camille R, the Hextech ultimatum, just completely locking down one target, that is going to have 1,000,001 different uses in the late game. I cannot wait to see how this Camille is going to apply it.
I think in comparison to last game, a lot hinges on that bot lane differential, where Lucian Milio is almost expected to win lane, pull some pressure from Jax, pull some pressure from mid lane to maybe hopefully get their top lane ahead, get their mid lane getting some stacks, you know, push their team and really kickstart that engine that they have as a team comp.
Yeah, and looking at it, right, you know, if Lucian isn't ahead, if Volibear isn't ahead, if Gnar isn't ahead, then what do you really have as a team comp? Sure, you can mechanically outplay for first Drake, second Drake, maybe even third, but then as you go into the late game, HU have that insurance policy. They know that, okay, all we have to do is go even, or we can get as close to even as possible, and there is virtually no way that we're going to lose this late game outside of some sort of freak accidents, right? They're going to be able to secure those later objectives relatively easily and move their way forwards, with the only really big chance of thwarting their plans being that Aurelion Sol or the big Volibear like play onto one of their teammates.
And we are back. So I think important to this game specifically is something I mentioned as we were leaving last game, that ease of use, that sort of pick up and play potential that both teams have, where last game, the difference I really felt was that Ahri, where in the early game, she was able to pick up kills, pick up gold, push that team advantage. But as soon as it entered late game, you can't consistently get that charm on your carry. And even if you do, you can just as easily buy Mikhail's, buy QSS, have a cleanse, and get rid of it. Whereas on the other team, we see Nautilus still with that undodgeable ulti, but even more importantly, Camille able to lock down whoever they want within the team fight and decide this is the fight we're taking. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, with the lack of backline access they had before, that is certainly fixed right now. You've got your unstoppables. You've got Volibear ults just pouncing on top. He cannot be stunned until he reaches that bottom, and by then, a lot of the damage has already been done. Then you combo that up with as well Nara when he transforms into Mega. That just mass displacement and that ability to either slam people into a wall or slam people away from their teams, further into his own. That's a lot of good utility that will, completely crack open these team fights and displace a lot of key members. And then it's up to HU Storm to decide how they want to play around it. And their adaptability, especially, is going to be their key to survival here.
Speaking of their survival here, do you think one team or the other would rather be in the late game than the other?
I mean, it's a lot closer this time around, right? But looking at it the way that it is, I think I would much rather have Storm. HU's team is just better suited to be in the late game, assuming everybody's like level 18, has all their items, all that. And those look like we're going to see a bit of an early engage. Going to get a little bit more action than we're used to. At least with the Nautilus seems to be backing out just a little bit, maybe to bait. Not too sure. Yep, and there you go. Everybody's just walking out, making sure, you know what? Fine, we got the ward. That's okay. It does look like Barlow is going to go for a tiny bit of seconds, but Michael is just urging him to not. Now, they do, if they get the bush cheese, they do have to damage level 1. But then after that, it quickly starts to fall off, especially as Milio gets those burns off. Landkreis has the first Drake. Going to make those trades a little bit more negative for UofT, or for HU, so they're going to just distance themselves, and they're going to approach the lane as they normally would if they were leashing.
If you can see, actually, it's interesting that Milio here has opted for Guardian rather than any other choice. I think that sort of indicates that he's entirely and only interested in Lucian's well-being. That Guardian can afford him a little shield, a little extra theoretical HP that can maybe let you survive that Camille dive, can let you survive that Nautilus R, where in other situations you would just get absolutely melted.
Yeah, and I mean, just in the game that's as bursty as League is right now, just every little bit counts, and making sure that enabling your ADC to survive with 1 HP where he would have died before, and that's a really, really big difference.
Here we can see the trades, the sort of the autos, the farming that's happening top lane, how this lane is expected to play out for the rest of the game, where Camille sort of just takes those auto attacks and says, I'll take that with the Doran's shield, heals up, gets those minions, and hopefully looks to scale himself into where that power in Camille is really seen in comparison to the range that Gnar has in the early game.
Yeah, exactly. The first Mega Gnar comes and goes. He's not going to be able to take too much advantage of it, especially even though he's level 3. He is lacking the key ability that makes Mega Gnar, especially Mega, which is his ultimate. And we see Landkreis with the classic little shove-in. Lucian, Milio just completely dominating the lane to start. They're going to try and pressure out his opponent, just making sure that they lack in that CS. They miss those CS under turret. Follow that up with a nice trade from Ego onto Notice. Notice playing a little too close to that wall, catching a stun, followed up by that extra true damage. It's just... Camille is a master at trading.
Definitely. And as we can see, if those trades... And we have an engage coming out here in the mid lane.
Yep, CY Blood with a nice stun goes through the Duckman's flash, and that just looks like he's not going to really be able to escape. He does walk a little bit more, forces CY Blood's flash, but that's going to be first blood, 400 gold, and sums down for Duckman. That's going to be both sums, as he's going to be forced to TP back into the lane, and followed up by Barlow with a nice hook onto Milio. But he is able to walk away unscathed. Landkreis is walking back into the bush, though, low HP. It's going to be a little interesting seeing where that one goes. Notice trades onto Ego. Wow, that was a little bit of a mouthful. And nice stun onto Milio. Making sure that he doesn't just walk up and get that ward for free, although Michael is a little bit lacking, both in HP and in mana at the moment. Nice little hook, making sure that Milio is just a little bit behind on his escape. Oh no, Kid Beats just misses the counter-strike thanks to Milio's flash heal. And CY Blood coming in with the counter gank. He doesn't have the flash from before, so it was wasted. And Michael gonna flash away on his own. Big stun on the Nautilus. Jinx almost falls, just taking a lot of damage from the Storm Surge. That was a lot all at once.
Nothing you can do about a big bear running at you.
Mhm.
I've got to say, this puts UofT in a great position as they have, as Volibear here has put their two most important lanes, I must say, ahead of the game right at the start, both
Yeah.
in the gold sense, and if you notice now, both mid and bot lane both don't have any sums. If Lucian wants to look to push his advantage with his sums, or even Aurelion Sol, he is both the teleport being used here and the flash if they look to make a play on Dragon.
Yep, exactly. Now, Ego and Notice taking trades as per usual. They're both dragging down literally pretty low HP, but they don't both have their TP still available. Probably going to expect to see a little bit of a recall from both of them after this wave fizzles out. Minecraft is walking up, trying to make sure that this wave doesn't crash, makes the CSing a lot more difficult. And it looks like the shove is going to go through.
It's also interesting to see the two buys on their backs. Jinx here opting for the cull for that more passive farming advantage, whereas Lucian with the triple longsword buy opting for pure fighting, pure damage potential, maybe looking to push for a dragon.
Yeah, I mean, triple longsword, that is the most AD to money that you can buy in the early game. Well, adhering to your builds, of course, is probably some item that gives a little bit more in your ratios, but that's okay. Because now they're going to be able to secure first Drake. It is going to be a little bit of deja vu as it's mounted Drake first. Again, very, very nice. Gnar, Volibear, even Lucian himself are going to feel very, very nice about having this. There's never a moment where having more tank stats is going to hurt you.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting to think about this. They had to trade last game for 3 grubs for that dragon straight up. Whereas here, Jax hasn't even started the grubs. They can look to push their advantage bot lane or even look to contest the grubs. If Volibear looks to move here, where he doesn't, looks like they're setting up a dive. 4 men in the bot lane here.
Bit of a UofT specialty, 4-man dive in bot lane, and goodbye Michael, goodbye Barlow. They didn't really have a chance. Emilio with the expertly taken aggro from the turrets. Make sure that everybody stays pretty nice, high HP, and they're just able to walk back to their jungle, to mid lane, and, continue on their business.
Incredibly good for UofT. As a bot lane player, you hate to see it. Not only does Jinx get another death, as well as Nautilus putting their lane opponents even further ahead, but also you get denied that CS, which is the whole reason why you bought the cull in the first place. If you're not getting the CS, the cull's doing nothing for you.
Yeah, exactly. And now being almost 10 CS behind and 3 kills behind in the bot lane itself, you're feeling pretty shaky about if this Jinx is going to be able to scale to hit her breakpoints at a reasonable time frame. Because this is how ADCs become sort of useless. As they scale, they're not hitting their breakpoints, they're not able to complete their items in time, and being that far behind is just going to be a recipe for disaster, as you're lacking a critical source of your damage in a lot of these mid to late game team fights. Let's see why Blood, again, he just loves this bot lane. This bot lane is his lifeblood, and he does have level 6, so they could take this to the tower if they so desire. Looks like Duckman got spotted on the rotate. Not going to be able to engage on him, though. He's going to be able to walk back towards mid lane with the brand new jungle pathing that got introduced this season.
I think both junglers are sort of noticing this power disparity, as well as Kid Beats looks to push their advantage top lane, maybe look for a pick with that Camille ultimate, and get some money for himself.
Gnar stuck between a rock and a hard place, especially as Mega falls off. Caught up by the Hextech ultimatum. Doesn't last for too long, but that's okay. As he is able to, get his blows in where they count. Camille missed 1 or 2 CS under the tower. And that's the best you can hope for in a situation like that, when you're trying to run away, but you're not quite able to.
We sort of see a split here now, starting off, where bot lane for UofT becomes their winning lane, whereas top lane for Harrisburg University is theirs, and they almost look to split the map down the middle. And whereas UofT is already cracking second, third plates on bot tower, top tower has not even been touched.
Yeah, exactly. And, following that up now, since the wave was crashed, Camille wasn't able to get any plates, like you mentioned. That is still a pretty decent moment for Nara. He's not getting sent even further behind following that death, right? And having those tab eyes early is going to get him a lot of comfort points and making sure that he's not forced out of the lane too early. Now, Landkreis does not know he's on top of a ward. They're being stared at straight through that brush, no problem at all. But it does look like Volibear is going to be forcing this blue buff, making sure that they are starving Kid Beats of resources when it matters the most.
And I think use of resources is going to become really important here, as Harrisburg University has two of those important carries, which above anything else needs resources. Jinx without farm, Jax without farm. I'm terrified of the idea.
Yeah, exactly. It does not sound like a fun time at all. And then CY Blood again, just, you know what, bot lane, you will live in fear. You will fear the name Volibear. There is no escape for you. And I mean, what are your thoughts right now? Looking at the state of the game, do you think that UofT have gotten the lead they so desperately need with this kind of comp, or do you think they still need to push things further?
Oh, definitely. As playing Aurelion Sol, playing around that Volibear, even just at this point, I think there's very little short of UofT throwing the games themselves that they can do to stop this ball from rolling. Aurelion Sol already has his upgraded ultimate, is obviously looking for that fight around Dragon. They're going to push their advantage, and all of a sudden, this fight, which should have been even going into this Dragon, becomes slanted towards UofT, who is also scaling into the late game.
Yeah, now Infernal Drake, again, a very nice Dragon to have, especially as an early game comp, getting that extra AD, getting that extra AP, especially with all that extra map pressure that you've gotten available to you now. That is very, very nice, and it even opens up the door a little bit towards Volibear making a play on the bot tower. He does have his ultimate available, and it looks like Jax is getting spotted on top of the Void Grub, so they have two options now. Do they want to try and match it, or are they going to go ham on the bot?
It looks like they're not quite sure, as everyone seems to ARAM it mid.
Oh, wait, red side stole it. Jinx Rocket took the Drake.
Oh my.
What?
I didn't even notice.
Wait, that is devastating. That is horrible if you're looking at that. And you're going to be very, very upset with yourselves. Volibear, he still had the sight. He was too cocky with it. And there you go. Michael keeping his team single-handedly, may I add, in the game. I mean, that buys them a whole 5 extra minutes. Definitely. And it does look like we have the technology, and we're seeing a replay. Replay times 2.
Look at this Jinx in the bot lane, setting up for it, pushing lane, knows that there's nothing that they can do about Dragon at this point, throws the Hail Mary ultimate, and just as it mighted, what a perfect timing.
Yep, 992 HP was what the Dragon's health bar read. That was unsmiteable for the Volibear. He tried to make that play work, but no, the 900 damage smite just... he got outsmited. It's crazy.
Something that may come to be incredibly important, like you mentioned, those 5 minutes of time can be...
Barlow, final tick of Ignite, catching him down, but then Cries getting flashed on in turn. Oh, okay, fine. 1 for 1, we'll take those. Getting Jinx her first kill of the match, very, very nice, as well as the steal. It's a lot of extra gold in Jinx's pocket. It's going to re-escalate her scaling back up. Now notice getting a nice stun right as he exits Mega Form, and oh no, he jumps out, but okay, fine. He's able to get the third auto proc, passive done, and Camille dead. Now, elsewhere on the map as well, we do notice that Jax is respawning. Seems like CY Blood was able to get another kill, even though that matchup should skew, in theory at least, the other way.
And while Chaos is starting to enter this game, you can see things are still sort of ending up UofT's favor. They're sort of maintaining that 2,000 gold advantage, and while they're not pressing these objectives maybe as much as they want to, it doesn't entirely matter if you don't get picks. Unlike the one that we're maybe seeing here, Melio getting caught out off guard and secured by the Jinx. Very, very, very valuable for Harrisburg University. Something that they were probably going to look to exploit for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really nice pick. They knew what kind of vision they had and what vision that UofT didn't have. And they were able to just push, 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 push. They went further, they went deeper, and they got the kill on Melio. And that's going to lead into a Rift Herald, and that could be their way back into this.
I think something has to be said about choice of objectives, objective focusing, and general team organization around such objectives as they get. Fight comes out here in the top lane.
Yep, Notice taking a lot of HP off of Ego. Ego just trying to make his play work. Oh, nice flash Q from Notice. And that was, okay, Ego, he disrespected. He had that ego, right? Disrespected the Gnar, did a lot of damage, especially considering he had the completed Triforce to the Ravenous Hydra. I mean, that damage disparity is massive, and considering that Camille wasn't expecting it at all, she did make an honest attempt using the flash, using the ultimatum, using the slingshot to try and get out of there. It just caught up at the very, very end. Man, going flash for flash is not the worst thing. Oh, nice escape there for Yuumi Princess, making sure that they're not going to get caught by the Nautilus hook and trying to just save this tower out the best that they can. Duckman getting slowed by the Aurelian Soul. Nice ult stun, followed up by Volibear himself. Yep, that's a lot. And now big stun as well from Melio. And Lucian went from the back ropes. Counter-Strike going to save their lives just this moment. But nope, not enough. Volibear with the R, just making sure to go deeper, 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 deeper. Just no escape, no running, no hiding. Your tower's meaningless.
Pretty good picks as well for UofT as that dragon starts to come up. It doesn't look like they have quite the timings to be able to just secure it for free. And so while those kills push the gold advantage even more in favor of UofT, it looks like it might be just a straight up 5v5 for this next objective.
Yeah, I mean, next dragon coming up relatively soon. Got a pretty even playing field. This is, the moment you are waiting for. Lucian does have a pretty nice damage advantage over Jinx, right? With those items with the double longsword plus the BF sword. But you see that CS advantage is pretty much dried up. And looking even at the mid lane, Karma got it even again with the Aurelian Soul. Nice hook from Barlow onto CY Blood, making sure to chunk him just a little bit at a time. Not as much damage as they probably would have hoped for. And Lankrise is stuck in the dragon pit. Makes his way out with his dash. That's okay, but now 3,000 HP on the dragon. They're not going to be able to recontest it, and recontest it they won't at all because they're all dead. Nice shutdown as well, going over to Jinx, 600 gold. And dare I say, Jinx might even start to get ahead now. This is a huge blunder from UofT. Not only did they start the Drake early, they ended up having to surrender it, and then they also lost 3 members in the process. This is not where you want to be.
I think we're seeing, again, some of this difficulty that UofT seems to be having with objectives control and objective decisions, as Gnar gets left in the mid lane while the rest of UofT starts the dragon, sort of splitting their options and saying, we both want mid lane, and the dive comes in bot lane, picking up the ADC.
Yeah, Lankrai is just SOL, stuck between a rock and a hard place. And even if he didn't dash away from the tower, it was 1 HP, so Kid Beats and Ego's damage combined could have, killed it before they took him out slightly after. Nice stun from the Aurelian Soul, making sure that he's not the only one who is stuck in place. And Notice getting the nice little double kill, plus a nice 150 gold shutdown. Michael, though, in the mid lane, capturing that turret, making sure that, it was not all for nothing. 1 for 2 trade in bot lane, plus you get mid tier 1. That's not the end of the world.
And you can actually see how not end of the world it is in the gold charts. It's only a 1,000 gold difference once again. Sort of Harrisburg University clawing themselves back into this game through smart decision making, through team composition, through organized team fighting, which UofT seems unable to pull off, at least to their full potential.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, seeing that, Jinx is 1,000 gold up on her counterpart on the Lucian. I mean, what do you think that really means for the rest of this match?
I think it's incredibly important to consider who the gold's on. And
Mhm.
while you have that advantage in the top lane, you can sort of see what happens when a team plays around a hyper carry versus around a split pusher. Gnar isn't able to be the focal point for all their fights. He's got to be placed in the side lanes. He's got to be pushing always. Unless they're going to go for that full all-in 5v5, Gnar is not going to be the one that's going to be engaged on, whereas Jinx is able to pump out that damage consistently, no matter where she is, plus get those snipes across the map, as we've seen with those ultimate abilities.
Yep, no, Nar and Camille coming head to head again. Camille making sure that there's no chance to hit me. I'm just gonna back off. I'm gonna disengage. I'm gonna counter those waves as they come in. Aurelion Sol and Nautilus doing a little bit of a square off around the Baron pit, making sure that that vision is denied. They're coming back around with a little bit more support this time. Karma has her second item completed. That's a very, very big power spike. Picking up the Oblivion Orb as well, just making sure that a lot of those heals are negated, especially with Milio on the team. He does a lot of healing, surprisingly, even though he's not really the healing support. No, Barlow just caught on the wrong angle. Alex a little bit too far next to the Baron pit, and that looks like it's going to be a Baron angle now. CY Blood making sure to clear off those wards, making sure that that vision is not there anymore, but it's a little poked out by the Karma. Baron starts up, so he's going to be forced to back out.
And we have the flip side of what I was talking about before, where Gnar is now able to sort of leverage that advantage they have in the top lane. Say, I don't want to teleport to Baron. We're going to force you to make the decision. I either take tier 2 bot lane or we get Baron. Your choice.
Yep, now big force on the Baron coming out. Aurelion Sol and Lucian doing it pretty quickly. Look, Karma is forced to kind of blindly fire her abilities over the wall. That's Mantra down for a little bit. CY Blood with a nice flash Q. Again, Karma just needs to die, but no, she's too tanky. That's the Karma differential right there, baby. And now Jinx standing in the middle of Aurelion Sol's abilities, like, nope, I don't care. You are gone too. Big flash as well, just to preserve the Jinx's life. Make sure that the shutdown does not go over the opposite side. And now Nara is going to attempt to chase her down. Unfortunately for her, though, the Blastgun was available, so Jinx does live to fight another day, and Lancry is going to look just for a little bit of compensation in the form of that mid-tier 1.
While that looks really, really good, you have to notice who the kills are and what happened around the rest of the map. The Harrisburg University only lost their jungler and their support for no objective change. Baron wasn't taken, bot lane tower wasn't taken, and yet Camille was still able to push out her lane, bring that CS a little bit back, and hold on to that teleport, which Gnar won't have for the upcoming objectives.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Drake is starting up, though. We're going to be seeing a very, this is going to be a pop-off moment. This is where your fight is going to take place. And it looks like HU just have the early advantage. Jinx just dumping damage. Jinx, Jax, Emil. It's just gone. It's immediately there. There was no fight to be had, and now 5 minutes till the next one, 5 minutes till the next Drake. There's just no point in fighting right now. Just, okay, we're going to back off. We're going to re-gear everything towards the Spirit angle now. Instead, we're going to try and force things out on the side lanes as well with Camille. Camille is just bot lane. She has the TP. She can join her team. But until then, that's a pretty juicy looking tier 2.
And here you can see UofT are forced to make a play as they jump in on that Karma, dumping everything into killing her and getting that tier 2. It looks like they're trading bot tier 2 for top tier 2. See what they can get out of it. Maybe mid tier 2, maybe Baron, as both teams look to ping around the map and hopefully organize their team around what they want to do next.
Starting up the Baron, they recognized, okay, HU, they're going to go for the mid tier 2. They're going to go for the inhibitor turret. Sending Aurelion Sol to match the Camille isn't the worst idea. Although it does mean that the mid inhibitor is going to fall. No, it looks like it's going to potentially be 2 inhibitors falling, as Aurelion is now backed up against a corner. And even if they're able to secure that Baron, that's going to be 2 inhibs down. That is a massive advantage for HU. And
I have
makes
to also
you wonder
note,
if that trade was all worth it in the first place.
It's also not just 2 inhibitors. It's also the inhibitor turrets and the tier 2 towers that they got on their way there,
Yeah.
mounting up for quite a bit of gold that even though they're 5 kills down, they're only 2,000 gold behind, plus they're right on Dragon Soul.
Yeah, I mean, that was a ton of gold split between those two turrets. That is about, I don't know, 2,000 extra gold just lying there to be taken. And you can just see that distribution of your forces, right? Yeah, Karma got taken out top lane. Then immediately the call was made, okay, fast push mid, fast push bot. They might be trying to take Baron, but that's okay. We want to trade these. And then Aurelion Soul just had no chance. Even between the Nexus turrets, he just couldn't survive.
And you can see that decisiveness that you're able to have with a Camille R that just locks an individual down, picks them off in a maybe a numbers disadvantage, as we saw the 3v1. Even though you're under the Nexus towers, you can't go anywhere. We're going to get you.
Yeah.
Also, importantly, I think, this inhibitor advantage that Harrisburg University now has makes almost nullifies the Baron differential, where UofT is not able to push anywhere past mid simply because of the power that Harrisburg University has, as well as the push that they're going to feel back in return from the super minions.
Yeah, exactly. You know, everything is fine and dandy for the next minute, minute and a half. But then as soon as that Baron buff starts to fall off, then you're going to really start feeling that burn, and you're really going to start feeling the pressure from losing those inhibitors, having those super minions just fighting back at you. Karma at this point in the game, she has almost 3 items, is, you know, comfortable enough matching that Gnar on the sideline, and that's really a decisive moment, because you no longer have to send just your Camille. You're able to send different units, you're able to send your different solo laners, and that really opens up your flexibility a lot, even though all right, the name is escaping me. White haired lady, the big thighs, the razor blades. Camille, there you go, Camille. Yep. Even though Camille does get spotted and forced to back up a little bit out of UofT's blue buff, she is still applying a lot of pressure, and Aurelion Soul being out of the fight is a really, really big deal, especially in a post 30-minute world.
I'd also like to notice, like you mentioned, these items are racking up. We're starting to see some of these really important buys from both teams' carries. I'd like to highlight some of even the supportive items being key and pivotal to these fights. The Knight's Vow allowing for a little extra leniency on Jinx's damage. The Shurelya's allowing for a boost of movement speed to get in and out of battle. As we see, they're setting up right here.
Oh, nice blind Q from the Karma. Gonna spot both Lane Cries and CY Blood. And now it looks like they're going to be scrambling to make their way back towards the base. And just going to defend against this push. It looks like HU are going to want to try and make a fight happen here. Nice hook on to CY Blood. Probably going to force out Volibear ult sometime soon. Milio R comes out, but it's not enough. Nautilus R make sure that he is locked down, lock in key. And there you go. Volibear falls as well. And this is it. This is the fight end. There we go. Double TP into mid. Looks like it's going to be the end of the game, perhaps.
They're looking to force here.
Yeah. Now, nice flash from Ego onto the Aurelion Soul. Misses the stun, but that's okay. Oh no, but Lucian gets a double kill, trying to defend as much as he possibly can. Gnar with the R flash, but not going to be able to find enough. And that Jinx. Jinx. 3.5 items. Do it all day, every day. Making sure that those 2 kills are hers, and it combined it with the turret attack speed. There's just nothing you can do.
And it's tough to see it because, you know, right at the end of that fight, right at the end there, Jinx is left still full HP, basically untouched by the enemy team, firing away, getting excited, and just tearing them down and their Nexus.
Yeah, and I mean, even like you pointed out before, it wasn't that big of a gold disadvantage, right? They were about even in terms of golds, but then you still saw everything that played out, right? It was pretty dominant for HU.
And I think it's interesting to see the changes in playstyle, but still the strength in Harrisburg University into the second game. They picked sort of a different bot lane, they picked sort of a different comp, and yet they still managed to make it work in the face of the challenges that UofT put in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, UofT got their way. They got B1, so they got their pick onto the volley bear. They got their nice setup with it, but it just they weren't able to push their advantages in a way that they were able to keep them. Right? They had the Lucian Milio that did get a big lead in lane, and then Volibear dove them as well. But even throughout everything, Jinx was still able to CS. She was still able to keep up. And then when the team fight started happening, she was collecting those shutdowns left, right, and center. So looking at that, you were able to build up an advantage, but you just weren't able to keep it. And then it gets tossed. And especially, I mean, I just want to throw us back to in your minds, of course, just to like imagine it with me. The the Dragon Steel, right? The Infernal Drake, when Jinx took it, I mean, that was game pivotal right there. That was what bought them enough time to scale in.
Definitely. I think even counter to that, it
Mhm.
put Harrisburg University, it put a win condition right in their laps. They're able to get all those drakes and through the objective control, force U of T to take a fight, force that Aurelion Sol maybe outside of his comfort zone, outside of those towers, which you saw later into the game he was flashing under. And by that point, Camille has too much damage. They have too much lockdown. They have too much CC. And there's nothing that U of T can do to scale, to capture objectives, to get them back into the game.
Yeah, and I mean Aurelion Sol, he was there. He was their scaling win condition. But unfortunately for him, Camille was just an absolute menace. Camille, once she gets on top of Aurelion Sol, I mean, it's just kind of over. And with that Hextech ultimatum and Aurelion having no conceivable way to cleanse himself or to get himself out of it, you're just locked in place and you're basically waiting on death's door.
And in comparison, while Nar did quite well in that 1v1,
Hmm.
I can't quite remember any of those team fights having a massive influential Gnar ultimate, which likely you're picking him for. If
Yeah.
you're going for that team fight potential, you want a good Gnar R. And in comparison, there's very little you can do to mess up a Camille R, where I could remember 3 or 4 times that Camille R making the difference in a pick and objective control.
Yeah, exactly. And the amount of times that it came in pretty influential, especially when they decided to do that little base race versus the Baron. I mean, without it, they wouldn't be able to force Aurelion Sol out in just quite the same way. They might have still ended up with both the inhibitors, but they might have ended up, having to trade a lot more heavily for it. And the way that they just got away scot free and with a kill onto Asol, it was just a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I think it's very important for U of T to come into this third game and recenter themselves, decide what it is that's giving them such difficulty that their team comp, that their decision making isn't replying to. I
Hmm.
know they had some shining moments in the past 2 games.
Yeah.
Um, but that team cohesion, that putting it all together, that pushing for the win just isn't there. They're not
Hmm.
getting those inhibitor towers. They're not getting their inhibitors. They're not pushing those final objectives that really indicate a winning position. I haven't seen them get a soul. And if that's what they're going for, they're going to have to push harder.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it right now, yeah, sure, this is UFT's, their play style. This is what they're comfortable on. Those early game advantages and converting them into those quick games. I wonder if maybe it's time to try and match the scaling. Maybe they want to go, okay, we're unable to shake them in the early game. Let's go to late game with them. Let's take this game to 30 minutes. Let's take this game to 40 minutes and see who can duke it out then.
And you can see sort of that ideology slipping into them, that
Hmm.
choice of the ASOL instead of the Ari mid lane, whether they think maybe, like you said, late game is their position to win. Maybe
Hmm.
they think they can finally outscale. It doesn't matter if Camille has her ultimate. If I'm Elder stacked Smolder, I can just turn around and kill her. But
Yeah.
that'll all come down to execution. And like we were mentioning before, UFT has just been lacking.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's little you can do to solve a a bad execution, right? you can take your breaks. You can make use of them wisely. You can go in between the maps. You can get everyone like get up, stretch, go around, recenter yourself in between these maps. But then when it comes to game time, that is it. That is the game. And the way that things are kind of slipping and sliding away from them, sort of moving out of their control. I mean, once you see it, it's unmistakable, but there's little you can do to actually stop it.
I think we've got a little bit of a break before the next game. So we'll catch you guys right before that.
Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are right here still again. Number two, Electric Boogaloo. We've got third map coming up. HU are up now 2-0 against UofT. And we're trying to see, do miracles really exist? Right? Because the reverse sweep that we've all been praying for, I mean, look, I don't want to come across as the bad guy, but I'm not a believer. What do you think right now? Is this something that we can come back from?
I mean, the reverse sweep is always a belief, and you've always got
Mhm.
to, no matter where you are, you always got to keep that in your heart of hearts. You're thinking about what happens to the mentals when that one game flip happens. When you're 2-0 up and you're thinking, "Yeah, guys, let's just play this simple, play as we've been playing," and it doesn't work. What happens then? I don't want to say that I'm a believer, but I can see some chaos being injected in these
Fair.
games. I can see UofT changing up their game strategy and maybe deciding we want to take this to the enemies. We want to take this game ourselves.
Yeah, and looking at the way that things are playing out, I do want to see them go out with a strong hurrah, right?
Definitely.
Like they have been kind of spinning their tires. They've been staying in the same spot. They haven't been able to, switch gears into drive. They've kind of just been stuck at go,
Hmm.
right? So being able to see them hit that late game comp, hit that late game power spike, I want to I want to see more movement, right? Because we're seeing the things play out as they should, but we're not really seeing too many signs of life. I mean, what do you think is going on?
Yeah, I think even if they go into this game deciding maybe we don't win this, maybe we do give in that third game. I want to see a passionate fight, either a well fought victory or even a well fought loss. I don't want any of this. We're going to give in objectives and we're going to lay over and just take that third game. I want to see the opportunities of a reverse sweep really come into the hands of UofT here. Really grasp their destiny, grasp their future in this tournament,
Yeah.
and make it happen with this final game that really matters more than the last two for UofT. This could be make or break it.
Yeah, exactly. And let's not jinx it. We're not calling this the final game. This is this is the next game in the series, right? I'm a believer. I want to see more happen, and especially since the next the next stage of this playoffs, we could potentially see UFT and Waterloo have a little bit of a rematch because so far in in group state from group stages, they exited their group with Waterloo and they only lost one series, and that was to Waterloo themselves. So seeing that rivalry, seeing that rematch, I mean, that's something I want to see them fight for. But that all hinges on what happens today.
Hmm. Hmm. And maybe it was some rust, maybe some practice needs to be gained from those first two games for UofT. But whatever it takes, they have to muster it, find it within themselves to do whatever it takes to win this game. I,
Yeah, and doing whatever it takes. I think that sort of drive, that hunger to improve, that desire to get there. I mean, that's really what I want to see coming out from the team. And it looks like they're going to be taking blue side again for this incoming draft, making sure that they get their comfort picks down. They get their choice of their volley, the karma. I would be honestly very very shocked if karma got through the draft again,
mhm.
right? Because she's just been,
Seems
although in
core
map
to
two
their
we
play
didn't see
style.
it. Yeah, I mean, we didn't see it too much in map 2 because of just how chaotic everything ended up being, but Karma is just such a Thanos style character, where if she gets to the point where she has the third item, she has the 2.5, 3 items, that is really, really difficult for your team to function as a pick-based comp.
Mhm. And as we've seen sort of these team compositions morph and change in adaptation to what the bans are, what the changing playstyle is as
Mhm.
these drafts have played out, it's going to be interesting to see where both teams land on what they've decided they've learned from the last two games. I think likely Harrisburg University is deciding, let's just do what we've been doing. Let's take this to game 3.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're at this advantage and you have your 2 maps already secured, you don't have to take risks. You can just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and go, okay, we're going to do this until it fails, and then we're going to do it. We can even do it until it fails twice before we have to start innovating. We have to start changing our plan. And it looks like we're not going to really see too many signs of life, as the draft is playing out pretty much exactly the same. Let's see if blue pick is different. Volibear again. I mean, it just seems like a bit of a textbook rerun, right?
Mm-hmm. And whether U of T are here deciding that they think, yeah, Volibear wasn't the problem in the last game. We thought Volibear did well. Maybe they look to spice it up. And in comparison, they still pick the Lucian.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a difference. Lilia gets picked instead of Jax for HU's jungler. That is a big variance. That is going to be a lot less physical damage and a lot of AP getting thrown into the mix. And that could, seem to suggest that they are going to want to run it back on, say, probably the Camille or another AD-style top laner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there you go, Renekton. Renekton, you pick him for early game dominance, and then he just kind of scales anyways. He isn't the best character to have into your sort of later game, but in the mid game especially, getting that stun off, as well as having a lot of just AoE damage, is going to really serve him well.
I think the really pivotal dynamic here has been noticing the differences in bot lane, whereas UofT in their previous games have looked to play around their power in ADC, their scaling, protecting the carry type of comp. Harrisburg University looks to handshake that and say, yeah, we're going to just draft a stronger bot lane with the Karma backing it up, with the Renekton that looks much more willing to play weak side, Nautilus being picked again. It looks like it's going to be another game played around bot side.
Yeah, and I mean, they're just living in UofT's head rent-free. We see 5 ADC bans from their side, and I mean, they just really want to deny as much space as possible, and it's not really going to work out that well. I mean, they did ban the Jax again. They're making sure that Varus is gone so that HU are going to have to pick a unique ADC, and their pool is relatively limited. I wonder what they're going to go. Possibly, I'd like to see something along the lines of maybe a Kalista or
maybe a Kai'Sa.
I'm a Kalista enjoyer myself. I mean, what do you think is going to happen in this last spot?
I think likely they play around something that they can rely on for a steady flow of damage, like you mentioned. Those things are mostly banned out, and here we see that Kai'Sa that I was talking about. Very potent lane with Nautilus, able to proc that passive with basically everything in Nautilus kit. It looks like it's going to be a funnel around the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, and I mean, I do wonder if it's going to be a little bit of an Exodia Kai'Sa kind of build, or if they're going to stick to something more traditional and go those sort of on-hit Kai'Sas. You do have a lot of variety when it comes to her. You can either spec around your auto attacks, you can spec around your Q, or you can also go around the W with the long-range poke. And given that it is a Lilia team, I would expect something AD adjacent at the very least. I mean,
I would like to note, just like you were mentioning, it's interesting to see the different choices that that both teams have made. It looks like Harrisburg University opting for a much stronger AP team this time, whereas Kai'Sa, even as you mentioned, might likely go the AD build, is still going to be dishing out some AP damage, which if UofT choose to build tanky around a Volibear, around a Gnar, even maybe around an Orianna, it becomes a little difficult to deal with as these champs start stacking magic resist.
Yeah, and I mean, especially after the new item rework, there are a lot of powerful and tanky items that, counter your ability power. You've got Abyssal Mask, you've got the return of things like Spirit Visage, you've got a lot of things that can help you stack up your magic resist in a way that makes it very difficult to match.
I think it makes for a quite an interesting dynamic in the final game where both compositions are really tested to their limits. We're pushing this Lucian Milio, this Kaisa Nautilus bot lane into who can be better than the other. We've seen what both
Mhm.
teams are capable of. We've seen what both ADCs and supports are capable of. Are they able to finally put it where it matters the most? Game 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is your make or break moment. This is where you want to show up and you want to act, you want to put on a big show unless you're going to be sent home a little whimpering. You know, you don't want that to be the case, and you want to mark the end of, or potentially the future of your playoffs run with a big show, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, despite the showing that we've seen so far today, I mean, UofT have done very, very well for themselves getting to the stage in the playoffs, and I mean that's no small accomplishment. They have
Mhm.
getting to the top 8 teams in the region. That is a massive undertaking, and I mean, this is it, right? If you are a collegiate level player, this is where you want to be.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, you've done good getting yourself
Yeah.
here.
Definitely, definitely. I think each of those players can be proud of, even with the difficulties they've had in the first 2 games, proud of their performances, proud of how they've worked as a team and really fought for these games no matter what. Really
Hmm.
showing that soul, showing that fight in each of their lanes and each of their performances.
Yeah. Now, leading us into the map, we're gonna see probably soon um, how the teams decide to take this because they do have the Nautilus again for HU. So we could see a little bit of an early invade again. Got to keep an eye out for it. And we could also potentially see, if the invade does happen, I think it could go very either way. I don't think either side really has, a dominant showing, even though HU does have the Nautilus. There is going to be a lot of room for counterplay. I mean, what do you think would happen if an invade were to theoretically happen?
Well, I think, like you mentioned earlier in the games, both teams really look to put it all on the line here because game 3, which decides whether we continue playing or whether UofT gets knocked out of winners, no,
Mhm.
neither team is going to hold back on strategies, picks, invades. I feel like everything's going to be put out on the line, which includes jam-packed level 1.
Yeah, and I mean, as everybody runs out of their spawn, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a scatter shot. They're not going to be sending too many people into the jungle. Instead, they're going to all, up towards their own lanes. They're going to play everybody for themselves and making sure that everybody is well postured for the early game, right? You want to make sure that nobody goes to lane late. They get, especially if you're Renekton, right? Renekton into Gnar. Renekton wants to make it to the wave and try and hit things. Try and, escalate his level 2. But even in bot lane, Lucian Milio, while they do have bot prio, you still don't want to really delay Kaisa and Nautilus and potentially risk them losing an ECS in the process.
Mhm. And still, even along with what you said, you can
Hmm.
see this 5-point defense looking incredibly aggressive in the bot lane. Almost looks like they're posturing for a pick with Nautilus, even though Orianna looks so safe behind that bush, behind that wall, setting up.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't gotten a vision on anybody yet, and that's going to be the first little skirmish of the match. Yumi Princess getting the mana flow band proc, and it's going to be a little bit of a counter invade, trying to make sure that they're going to start the Raptors. Lilia going to split the map vertically, and I mean, this is going to be pretty interesting. Having the Lilia play around bot side, especially when they are the weaker side, and forcing Volibear to play around his Gnar, which usually isn't really a win condition. Usually Gnar is little more than a stun bot when it comes to especially the late game, which they're trying to scale towards. Forcing Volibear out of that bot lane contest is a lot, and that's going to do them very well.
Bit of a slow start as nothing quite
Mhm.
happens in that level 1 engage. Everyone looking to pick up their first waves, get that level 2. Little bit of advantage
Yeah.
pushed in top lane as they look to trade, give
Mhm.
each other a little bit of an auto attack or two. Same thing with
Yep.
bot side. Both teams looking to ease their way into their confident first levels.
Yeah, and just as is written down, Nautilus was forced out a little bit early, but no, Lilia with the early gank, level 3, making sure Landcryze drops low, forced the flash out, ignite from Nautilus, trying to see if they could secure the kill. Miracle as well, or Michael, did use the Ghost to try and get those follow-up procs, get the passives out. Just didn't really end up doing too much. And CY Blood out of vision, out of mind, gets the nice stun onto Barlow, but that is going to be Aftershock to save his life. Oh, nice little first blood for Lucian. And it's going to be a complete disengage from both sides. Everybody getting a little bit low on HP, especially Lilia is incredibly fragile into Volibear. Doesn't really have any tools to peel for herself if Volley does get on top of her. And with low mana as well. It looks like they're going to be invading deep into the jungle. And that Gromp is going to be forfeited.
And you can see this precarity that Milio Lucian offers you as you get this power to fight. As they
nice smite steal from Lilia, and CY Blood is now suddenly at the one running away for his life. Kid Beat's down to 1 HP, and Michael with the poke over the wall. That was very, very well played. Although it is going to lead to a double scuttle, most likely.
I think it's interesting to note here how these first levels have kind of played out as Lilia looked to focus bot lane, and yet they weren't able to get anything really meaningful in that gank. Sure, they got the flash, but how much is that flash worth if Volibear comes back, burns your support, burns his life, and gets that first blood?
Yeah, exactly. That first blood was very nice, and that Gromp especially was looking pretty enticing, but luckily for them, Lilia was able to get the smite steal because Volibear had used it a little bit previously. Now, Gnar, a little bit behind the levels, there you go, manages to get, I think, level 5 to kind of disincentivize Renekton from taking too many trays onto him. Now, Barlow trying to just kind of lure Milio in. It doesn't look like he's going to have any support at all, but it is a little bit of a trade, getting a nice amount of damage and forcing out some of Milio's pots and cookies.
Proper support fight, as I'm sure you know. Just two people slap fighting each other in the bot lane. Nothing new.
Yeah, but not like a proper slap. It's more like a just like a fingertip slap, right? Just gotta barely touch it up right there. And now Lilia is postured and ready for the Void Grubbies. Now bot lane Volibear did want to have a little bit more action, but he's gonna get forced off. Gonna find that control ward shortly. And it does look like they're posturing for a Drake for Void Grubs trade. I mean, stop me. You've seen this before, but I mean, this is very typical.
I think the only comparison this time is UofT's bot lane looks very much more on the front foot than they have in the past. Getting those 2 tower platings and forcing all vision outside of Dragon area. This is very, very important if you're looking from like a team perspective. Harrisburg University has very little decision making that they can make other than to just forfeit it or force face checking mid, as we can see here.
Yep, no, nice flash from Carmel onto Oriana, who matches in turn with her own flash, just barely being able to break the chain at the last second. And now Lilia is forced to just kind of walk around. Now Volibear taking his sweet little time on the Drake, going to probably guarantee it with the smite this time, making sure that there's no steal, no shenanigans happening. I'm going to be overly cautious after what happened with the Infernal Drake last time. And he's going pretty deep. He wants to try and get, try and dissuade Lilia from doing her camps and try and, draw out those fights, because that's where Volibear, he's best. He wants those early fights, and he wants to, try and push his lead as far as possible. Now, nice hook from Nautilus onto Landcryze. Landcryze really low HP, catches the heal from Milio, but the ignite combined with Lilia's damage is just too much for them to bear.
Definitely, and we can see that the faltering that has been so apparent in the other UofT games. They've done all the hard work. They've gotten the picks. They've gotten the objectives. They've got the tower plates, and yet they can't get out with their advantage. The kills are pushed back to 1-1, and the gold is back to about a 200 gold difference. Basically nothing, while I feel as though Harrisburg University are entirely happy trading all those differences for Void Grubs.
Yeah, exactly. Now, mid lane, pretty uneventful as to be expected. Oriana into Karma is going to do that. It's like the Ari into Karma matchup that we've seen before, but just 10 times more boring because, you know, just they have even more range to deal with. Wow, whoop-de-doo. Nautilus is doing a little bit of a vision sweep on top lane, as it looks like they're going to be doing a 3-man invasion onto the top lane.
Here are the sort of plays that we were talking about earlier in the game that really make the strategies really important, as he's unable to get out of this. Notice throwing a W, Barlow slowing him down, letting the others get a kill. Finally picks it up for himself.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to hand that kill over to the Lilia, over to the Renekton, and trying to escalate them even further into the game. But, I mean, they just weren't able to at the end, and then when Narg got all the way to his turret, you're like, okay, fine, enough toying with our food, and let's just secure this kill no matter what it takes. And I mean, hey, more gold onto Volibear isn't necessarily, or onto Nautilus, sorry, is not necessarily a bad thing. And there is Volley losing 2 Grumps for 2. He has been outsmote both times, but this time by a Kaisakyu.
And on the opposite side, I think we're gearing up for another dive here, even while Lilia looks to posture for a counter.
Yeah, no, Lilia is spotted to be there, and Volley is, you know, wary, but they do have the pings coming out that Karma is in the jungle. Gonna try and catch her while they can, but no, she gets the read and is able to walk away just fine.
While I don't think that was successful in any right, I think that sort of execution shows that UofT are learning from maybe some of the mistakes they made last game, deciding, hey, this maybe isn't a great dive. Let's pull our advantage back. Let's refocus, and let's look for something that can really put us in a winning position for this final game.
Yeah, and I mean, cognitive thought is a very important part of League of Legends. It helps you analyze your situations and try and see if those predetermined outcomes are going to work out or not. You know, looking at it right now, it is pretty even in terms of gold, despite HGU having that advantage with 1 kill. I mean, what is your read on this? What is going on exactly?
I'd be interested to see the gold distribution, actually, that while the team gold looks very fairly even, actually, if you look towards the bot lane, Lucian's almost 600, almost 1,000 gold ahead. And while jungler on Harrisburg, and a fight breaking out here as Volibear ults onto Kid's Beats, and he gets away from the blast plant.
Yep, now Lilia chased further and further into the jungle. There is no escape for her in sight, but Notice decides, you know what, fine, I want to get this hit in. I want to try and and hit her even more, but no, it does not get credited with a full kill for it. That's Lucian's job. He had the recall. He was there in base, ready to go, and there you go, just furthering that gold lead a little bit more, like you were saying.
And I think when you're dealing with teams like this, it doesn't quite matter how much gold the team has, but how much gold the people you want them to have has. So Kaisa being maybe a little bit behind Lucian here may become a problem when we're talking about 2-3 items, and all of a sudden the scaling from such early items that Lucian's allowed to push forward with, say, an early Kraken Slayer here, really can make the difference in final fights towards the end of the game.
Yeah, now, seeing how this advantage gets pushed further is going to be very interesting, as he does have that Kraken Slayer ready, but they aren't in a position to contest the Infernal Drake. That is incredibly bad for UofT. This is the kind of break that HE were looking for. They recognized that Volibear was nowhere to be seen, that he was, you know, pathing towards top. And they're like, okay, fine. We'll trade you guys. Yeah, we'll take this Infernal Drake. We'll stall your guys' game. We'll prevent you from potentially getting a powerful soul. And that soul is going to be powerful indeed. It's going to be a Chemtech soul to smash.
In comparison, it looks like Volley is happy to exchange that Drake for more pressure topside. Again, like you were saying, splitting the map down the middle. Lilia looks to invade once again, take his Raptors, and both junglers handshake their jungle in exchange for what I believe can be a very divisive map split, as we can see in the bot lane here.
Yep, now Nautilus going over the wall, catching the Lucian. No! His hook does get blocked by a little bit of the map geometry, and that's going to prevent their attack where it stands. Now, they are going to take Krugs, and that's going to be, Lilia further farming up. I'm being interested in seeing if they decide to try and take this any further. While Volibear decided to recall and path his way bot, he's going to be very, very unhappy to find out that all of his camps are gone.
Mm-hmm. And I think likely he might be looking for some sort of play around bot lane where he doesn't know where Lilia is. He's taken his jungle. He's left with no options, either gank bot or move top for where all your farm is, and he's caught between two difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now looking at the situation as it stands, Karma getting flash queued on by Volibear, securing that kill. Even though she did try and flash away to the security of her tower, it would have been all for naught anyways, as Volibear does have his ult available, which I'm sure they were aware of as well. Now Volley running around trying to, try and push this advantage as much as possible. They know that mid is down. They're going to try and secure these mini objectives like the Scuttle Crab.
And you can see how important summoners are here, especially on that Volibear, sort of ensuring that a gank is successful. Even if Karma flashes away, he's still able to get that kill. The difficulty is, I think, who those kills are being caught on and whether they're important to the game overall. As you can see, Kai'Sa is still farming up, still ahead on gold, plus she has that call, which is going to finish up in the next 6 minions, putting them specifically ahead of Lucian, who didn't have that call. And because Volibear hasn't been able to flash on that bot lane pick earlier in the fight, earlier in the game, she's able to keep farming, keep pushing that scaling, and I believe keep pushing that team strategy towards a winning condition.
Yeah, well, now that Volibear has Herald in his pocket, I mean, where do you think he's going to take this? Do you think he's going to go top, mid, bot, or is he going to hold this until potentially that dragon that's going to respawn in 2 minutes?
I think that's a pretty popular strategy, allowing for Herald to be that sort of 6th member in your team and split push the game, forcing the enemy team into a bad decision. Either you group as 5 at Drake and take a even fight and let your towers get destroyed, or you send someone to match the Herald and fight a slanted fight at Drake, neither of which you want to do. And that's sort of the decision making that you're allowed when you have this Herald.
Yep, now big Nautilus are onto the Milio, big flash as well, just trying to save his own life. That's preventing Lilia from marking him and getting that big sleep off. That's pretty well played by both sides, and Nautilus are being down potentially for this next fight is gonna kind of influence the way that things go.
I must say, though, playing Milio into Lilia is quite the depressing endeavor, knowing that at any point, even if you get that 5-man sleep, no matter when Milio presses that R ability, he's able to cleanse that sleep off of all 5 members just as easily as it was placed on him.
Yeah, I mean, having that cleanse for those big team fight plays, that is a crucial part of being Milio. He may only be able to cleanse 1 piece of CC on 1 target, but he's able to get 5 if all 5 of his teammates are, say, I don't know, drowsy, perhaps? So being able to shut down the Lilia, that's a pretty nice feature that he does have. But then, it's still to be seen, though, how it actually plays out in a real-world fight, because, I mean, ideally, Lilia will not be forced in a position where she has to use the sleep. And she can rather opt into waiting out the Milio ult, as it's pretty obvious when it does get used. Nautilus with a cheeky little flash forward into a hook, not going to find any targets though, as the fight has yet to continue. Or yet to begin, sorry.
As I like to say, I like Hex Flash better anyways. So that was more of a tester, I guess, for how UofT react. And it seems as though
some feelers.
Even though they didn't get a pick, they have the pressure top lane, and they have the pressure on Dragon.
Yeah, well, I mean, with this next Drake not being sole point, going, okay, you know what, fine, you can have this one. We'll just take the next one after, and we'll make sure to take this Renekton as well. Now, nice little kill. Also gets Volibear the level up, which is pretty good. And it's considered getting those levels on your jungle, on your Volibear is never a bad thing, especially racing towards level 11. Looks like Milio getting down to only 1 HP. CY Blood taking his spot instead, and that's going to be an ignite and a flash forward from Kaisa. You know, she wanted that kill and she wanted it right now. Nautilus getting out just barely with the wall hook, and that's I don't know, man. Well, nice little flash forward, but that's going to be trading again. And I mean, just like we mentioned before, UofT, they cannot get that advantage that they so desperately need. Every time they make a decision, okay, we're going to trade this Drake, we're going to trade this Baron, we're going to trade this Herald, we're going to trade these Grubs, we want to go for a play, they just end up going even for it anyways.
They can't get any of these advantages that they're working so hard for to stick. I feel as though all these strategies that UofT are pulling out, Hail Mary at top lane, the pressure that they're pulling from mid lane, Harrisburg University just has an answer to it. And each time when they get a pick, they have Kaisa available. They have Lilia available to make these trades that are so important for UofT to not be losing.
Yeah, and then I mean, you trade, okay, you can trade one Chemtech Drake for an opportunity top lane. Sure, that works. That checks out mentally. But then you go 3 for 3? And your Lucian uses Flash? I mean, that's pretty questionable. And not to mention Orianna as well, who did burn it a little bit earlier just to get into the fight in the first place. I mean, that is a bit of a horror situation.
I think we're starting to reach some of these breakpoints in characters and item purchases, which we've been essentially waiting all game for. Lucian's pushing on to his second item. Same with Kaisa. We've got items out of our supports. We've got items out of the top laners, mid laners, junglers. Everyone's getting all that damage, which makes these fights so swingy, so one-sidey, where one skirmish can mean one death, can mean an entire team fight is over and done with.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it right now, everybody is oh so close to their second items. It just matters who's going to be able to complete them before this next break. That is going to be the power spike you're looking out for.
As we can see here, it looks like they're looking to leverage their numbers advantage, push some pressure into the mid lane. Maybe...
Nar finds a pick onto Karma on the side lane, diving her under the tower and making it out with just a sliver of health. Now, on the opposite side of the map, though, HU are trying to find a pick in return, but no, UofT are doing the smart thing. They're playing safe. They're not giving this lead. They're not, throwing this lead just yet.
And while this strategy is nowhere near easy, it looks like UofT at least look a little more comfortable to play that 1-3-1, put their laners in split and say, we're just gonna beat you individually. Let's isolate, let's decimate, let's eliminate.
Yeah, Barlow Hex flashes over the side of the wall there, but no, even though he does connect the hook on Milio, it's just not going to convert to anything significant as the rest of his team is forced to retreat. And there you go, between the tier 2 and the tier 3, Kaisa falls as well. TP from the Renekton, gonna be forced to double E out. He's not gonna be able to get anything of value. And Gnar knocking Renekton back into the team, gets traded out, but that's okay because his team was able to find a kill off of it just fine. No, double sleep. And there you go. Those are the fights that we've been talking about. They had such an advantage. They go into it. They look so good, but then something always goes awry. Now, there you go. There's a cleanup. There's a triple kill for Lilia. Can we make that 4? Nope. Going to give the kill over to Karma, not risking any chances. And that's going to be a team wipe.
And I think we have a replay going back to that fight here, highlighting some of the key moments that really made that fight what it was. I think you really have to look at where Milio uses his ultimate here, as Lilia's sleep can make the difference between your carry staying alive and not.
Very well. And then Gnar, he was hungry for it. He wanted that extra kill. He went deep in. I mean, in theory, it was fine. But then that led to 3 more of his teammates falling in the trade.
Immediately after, you always have to think about the push and pull of abilities. When one's used, what are they looking for? As we see the fight
UofT going in fast. Volibear managed to get the steal onto the Baron. He is going to fall right after, but that's okay as long as the rest of his team makes it out alive. No, they're not interested in going alive. They want to go in deeper. Notice getting caught, slowed, almost rooted. Nice three-man stun, but it's not going to convert any kills. Never mind. Orianna gets the kill onto Nautilus, but is traded back in turn. And oh no, you only have 2 remaining members with the Baron buff.
It's really interesting to see how these cards have really fallen together, because while UofT loses 3 members, they're still up on gold. And if they can push what they've gained from this, maybe not into another Drake, but maybe into some gold advantages, maybe into some split pushes with the Baron that they still hold on their bot laners. I think UofT have a possibility with that Baron steal to bring themselves back into the game.
Yeah, it is going to be very difficult, especially as HU get themselves to Soul Point. That is their 2nd Chemtech Drake, 3rd Drake overall. I mean, that is a lot, right? And now looking at the replay, what can we see here with this Baron steal play?
I think it's key to note here how people are arriving. Volibear solo in there with Gnar, everyone not in position. They're not ready to fight this. The damage is so isolated on that Volibear that it's a 4v5 before the team fight's even really begun. So that once they're all jumping on each other now, even though the Gnar gets that incredible stun, incredible damage out, they just don't have the numbers. They don't have the health bars. They don't have the opportunity to pull that team fight back in their favor.
Yeah, and then now looking at the scoreboard again, looking at the item distribution and the amount of gold that each of the team members have, I mean, what are your thoughts here now, especially with that Medjai's?
I think it's really become UofT's game to lose. You can really see how confident Harrisburg University is with their items, with their plays. That Lilia Medjai is really showing that they think they can go the rest of the game without dying, even as these ultimate abilities, all this damage comes out from the side of UofT.
Yeah, now the Baron is going to continue to fizzle out just a little bit longer that they have, but they're not going to be able to really push any advantages with their empowered minion waves. And they're just taking a lot of pokes. See why Blood, he just loses so much HP to that Lilia now. And he's considered one of the tankier members of the team.
And in comparison to the other 2 games where UofT was maybe playing a little bit more of a pick comp, in comparison, Harrisburg University looking very happy to just follow the 4 of them around the map, no matter where they go. Even with this Baron, they get the tier 2. I don't think they can get much more. Harrisburg University 4v4 forces them to back, and with that Baron, maybe pushes their advantage back to neutral? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, the advantage certainly is there. The momentum is going to be on HU's side. But then you also have to look at the state of the map, and looking at the amount of towers that UofT has been able to secure. I mean, it's almost like we're watching a completely different team. They have 5 towers secured. 2 of them are tier 2s, compared to before when we probably saw almost like, what, 4 towers total taken?
It's much more of a even contest, and I think it's really in whoever's hands is to get the next pick, get the next one fight. It's really in the hands of the players right now.
Yeah, exactly. And looking forward, there is still 2 more minutes until the next Drake spawns. And that just gives both teams a lot of time to kind of twiddle their thumbs there. They've hit their power spikes, they've hit their 3rd items, and now they're just kind of waiting around until there is a reason to fight, until there is a pick to be seen. And CY Blood just saved narrowly by that ventilation unit. I'm just going to dodge that Lilia's pinball.
I think it's very important to look at topside here. See how Harrisburg University is posturing around these objectives, around these fights. It looks like both teams are split in their decision making. Do we go bot? Do we go top? And because of that, UofT is able to get a free tower out of it.
Yeah, and there you go. That's all of the tier 2s down, and only losing 1 in the process for UofT. I mean, hey, that's pretty neat, but it isn't going to mean anything if they're not able to win these team fights when they matter. And notice getting CC chained, CC after CC after CC, even in Mega Gnar form, he's not able to catch a break. A nice 4-man stun into the wall, and Volibear slamming in to follow it up. But no, he's just rooted, unable to move, unable to auto-attack, unable to bite. The Landcries, though, dishing out a really good amount of damage, combined with Yumi Princess, just trying to, you know, take this fight a little bit further. They're just trying to get that next level.
And I must say, in comparison to the last game, Notice has been pulling out those incredible, influential, game-winning, fight-winning ultimates. And it's really just up to his team whether or not they're able to capitalize that. Sure, he was caught out of position. Sure, he was half health before anything, as we can see in the replay here. But really, when you've got that Kaisa ultimate aim in,
Hmm.
and you have all those stuns, you have to be able to do something with it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just seeing the effects of that infinite CC chain. That was 4 champions on HSU's side that just continue to have CC after CC after CC that lock down these targets, that lock down the Gnar, that lock down the volley, but prevent them from moving. And then also at the same time threaten UofT's backliners and prevent them from walking up. Right now the Drake is going to be coming up, going to probably get started pretty soon here. I see why Blood is just still struggling to find a way into this fight.
Looks like UofT have slight advantage here on the posturing.
Hmm.
Looks like they have better positioning as he
Yep,
engages.
no,
Go in. Renekton looking
Yep,
to
trading
flank.
meager blows is going to be rushing the Drake. 1,000 HP. There you go. Nice little smite. Ego diving deep, but getting egoed his way out. Now, oh no, the Gnar ult only catches the Nautilus. Not able to secure the kill, but Ego, nice. Drops low HP. Michael as well. This is UofT's moment. This is the moment they've been waiting for, and now that they have the Drake, they've prevented a disastrous scenario, and they're going to be able to push out as much as they want to, or they can go for the Baron.
And dare I say it, they're back in the game. This gold advantage that they acquired through pushing all those towers, through stacking the dragons before, looks like they've worked out for them. They've stopped that soul point. I must say, while two Chemtech Drakes is useful, it is not the end-all be-all. And if you're able to flip that soul point, get that Baron, it can mean virtually nothing in the face of a game loss.
Yeah, exactly. Now, with the Baron, they're going to be recalling, and still, I mean, they're going to have a map presence advantage. Tier 1 mid lane does fall, as Karma and Nautilus are going to do a little bit of a hit and run, not running into UofT's red side jungle. Might get caught out, actually, before he's able to get the full recall off. You know, Volibear found him. Oh, he doesn't know, though, but Nautilus cancels the recall. Had a little bit of a moment there in the jungle, just kissing in the trees, but Shirelias is going to be able to assist Barlow in his escape.
Yeah, and you look out at how good Nautilus is at queuing to walls, being able to use that dredge line to pull himself out of danger. It's a sort of get out of jail free card that Volibear isn't able to abuse as well as these other champions that he can just flash Q onto.
Yep, exactly. And now, you know, with everything sort of evening out and the next fight is ready to take place, you're seeing that UofT are now, you know, looking to take advantage of that Baron buff that they've secured, sending, you know, for mid with the Gnar bot lane. What are your thoughts going in here?
Yeah, I think it's not just the Baron buff. We can see, even though kills are pretty much even,
Hmm.
gold is very much not. UofT has pushed their advantage unlike any other game in this series. And while they have similar advantages and they're in a similar position, they do
Hmm.
not have the same lack of gold that they did in the other games, and thus are able to put that pressure onto mid tower and get that engage.
Yeah, nice engage onto the Nautilus. He just wasn't able to retreat nearly fast enough. And I also do want to point out the Seeker's Arm Guard purchase for Renekton.
Wow, looking as if he's paranoid to those engages. It seems like
Hmm.
as if somehow very sad that I guess stopwatch was taken from the game, but also that he feels like he needs that moment of invulnerability to save himself.
Yeah, I mean, even with the bundle of AP stats that are kind of useless to Renekton, it is still kind of a powerful enough item if you want to make it work. And hey, I mean, Renekton is already so far behind, at least in terms of items compared to Gnar. Gnar already has his 3rd item completed, making his way towards his 4th. Renekton is just trying to fight his way back into or back from obscurity. Now, Ego getting dropped really low HP. There you go. That's the Renekton late game that I know and love. Now, notice getting a nice flash, a nice stun onto Kid Beats, not able to engage his ultimate, not at all. That is looking like a pretty decisive fight for UofT.
Could decide the game as the minions come crashing into the Nexus towers, only Michael left to fight off the 5 members of U of T. Is he able? No, he flashes into his own fountain, and it looks like U of T are able to close out game 3.
Yeah, and there you go. That's the start. That's the spark. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
needed. They are now with 1 point to their name. It's going to be 1-2. Each U Storm still in the lead. I want to see if we can continue this momentum, the reinvigoration, right? They still did stumble, they still did fall, but then overall they just kept that momentum going and they kept rolling on forwards.
And I'd be interested to see, interested to investigate what Harrisburg University thinks about this now, because as you know, there's quite a mental edge in League of Legends, and when you've pushed that 2-0 victory and you're looking to close the series out with a 3-0, and you get knocked back down with a 2-1, you're really questioning your plays. You're questioning what went wrong, what did we do in those 2 other games that it just didn't work as well? And you're thinking maybe U of T are now put on the front foot. Harrington University now have to respond. What did they do wrong? What can they do better this time? And whether the reverse sweep has begun.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, this is the kind of scenario that we were talking about before. They're just going to keep doing their thing. They're going to keep doing their thing. They're going to keep repeating it until it stops working. And there it is. So now this is the time for innovation. This is when plays happen. And this is when you sort of see this reinvigoration happen, right? So they tried to Lilia. They wanted to do a little bit of a mix up and not too much of a departure from what they were used to before. Now, as we enter map 4, I want to see, do they think that Lilia was the problem? Do they go back to the Jax? Or do they switch it all up entirely?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Um, I also think it's going to be a terribly invigorating game 4 as these strategies that are pulled out in game 3 sort of meet their test. U of T and Harrington University are no longer able to say, well, here it is, all out on the line. You have to do it again. And possibly, if they win this game, again in game 5.
Yeah, I mean, here we go. This is happening. This is the shot of life that we needed.
Mm-hmm.
This is their moment, right? And now going into our intermission before map 5, I just want to or map 4. I hope this leads to map 5. Anyways, I want to let you guys know. Just everybody, stay tuned. We're going to be right back, and we're going to get right into it with the action. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I don't know where I was going with that. I was gonna make a bit, but then the bit just kind of went out of my mind. But that's okay.
Welcome back. Welcome
And
back.
we gotta warm ourselves back up into it. But looking at map 4 just being handed to us on a silver platter, I mean, there's just so much to talk about, so much to do, so much to see,
Hmm.
right? Like, what is the first thing that you want to start to break down going into map 4?
I really think and this entire series has sort of pivoted on these objectives. How both teams respond to grouping around objectives, how both teams respond to capturing objectives. We remember in the last game that Volley Bear steal for Baron was incredibly influential, possibly even put them back into the game. And while first, second, third Dragon did go over to Harrisburg University, you have to think about what is the most important things about the game. Are we playing for Soul or are we playing for 3 dragons? Because in my mind, 3 dragons means nothing if you've got a team pushing on you. If the enemy team has Baron, if they've got a gold advantage, you can no longer go for those dragons. You're forced to have to try to steal just like that Volley Bear did in the last game. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, those steals, those were truly like the shots in the arm that they needed to, keep on going, get back in it, keep going. But, I would like to really see a form of, a little bit more control in this next match to a place where they don't need those hero plays, they don't need those steals, and they're just able to sort of execute properly.
Definitely, definitely. I think highlight moments have been the key highlights of these past games. If we think about not only the Volley Bear Baron steal, but also the Jinx ultimate steal in game 1, completely changing up the dynamic of the game based on what objectives are available, their timings, how much both teams have, and how ahead both of them are.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, heading into this now, this is pretty dangerous territory. As HU, now that they have lost last map, they get their pick. And most likely, because we've seen both teams have really, really favored blue side, HU are most likely going to go blue. So, I mean, what do you expect to kind of happen here?
I think it's a really shaking up of the status quo because U of T have lost the first 2 games. They were able to pick, like you mentioned, that blue side which they preferred. And not only now that they're placed on what they believe is the weaker side, but also Harrisburg University, they have to experiment themselves on a different side, whether they've gotten into the groove of playing red side or whether they think they're able to leverage some advantages that U of T was not able to capture when they had those opportunities on blue side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It'd be a pretty big power move if HU decided to go, okay, you know what, fine, we'll go red anyways. And
Hmm.
and they do decide to do it again, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Let's be clear. I think they are
Yeah.
gonna go blue side, which is kind of like a what if scenario. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
establishing that okay, HU are probably gonna go blue. What do you think is gonna be first pick? Is I mean, they have the ocean is open ahead of them. They have an entire buffet, right? They have 150 something champions. Who do you think is going to be their highest priority that they want to lock in immediately?
I think it's been interesting how much priority they've focused on that karma early
Mhm.
on in draft phase, allowing for a neutralizing pick to still flex and support their entire team as a whole. You're able to, if you have someone who feels so confident um, in karma as Duckman clearly is, you're able to pick it consistently and offer an out for
Mhm.
your team consistently, not only in that flex pick, but also in the diverse range of options that Karma as a champion gives you in team fighting, in splitting, in the teleport advantages that you can in some other mid laners you just can't pick up.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the kind of way that that HU mixed up their comp last time, where they opted into Renekton and they opted into Lilia, really changing how their top played and how kind of disastrous it ended up being. I mean, Renekton didn't end up finishing his third item even, and Lilia, even though she did look strong, he never had an in a way to get those big team fight ults where it mattered most. So seeing that and recognizing that, I'm interested in seeing what kind of decisions they make to kind of reinvigorate their top and jungle, or if they're going to try and go back to the old familiar and try and run back something like Gragas Jax or what did they run the game before that or the game after that? The Aatrox?
Aatrox, yeah.
Yeah, or like Aatrox Jax, something more along those lines.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the biggest differences between the 3 games that we've watched thus far is the performances in top lane and jungle. Here in the last game, you were able to see just how oppressive those Gnar ultimates, those Volibear engages can be. And I wonder if Harrisburg University identify as that as the problem which they had last game and decide to do something different. Spaffles, what do you think their response to that sort of challenge is going to be?
Yeah, I'm not really too sure. I mean, I think that it's up to HU to really innovate here because I do think UofT are going to try as much as they can on the red side to force the same comp that did work so well for them. But I mean, what are what are in your opinions like ways that HU can counter what worked especially well here?
Well, I think and this comes to mind immediately for me. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Go back to the things that won you the first game. You changed it up for the
Mhm.
Lilia pick. If you decide that, hey, the only thing we changed between these 2 games is that Lilia in the jungle and how it reacts to a Volibear, maybe we just go back to a neutralizing choice like Aatrox. Maybe a Jax that's able to support himself more individually than a Lilia is, pulling less of that sort of cohesive team fighting composition and more back into that split pushing identity that they had in the first 2 games.
Yeah, and I mean, I do agree with that, armchair coach mentality. And let's see where we're going to go into next, right? We've got the drafts pretty well underway. I mean, it's pretty typical so far. What we've expected, the Jarvan, the Twisted Fate, the Ashe, those are staple picks for HU to ban. And then on the other side, you're going to see with a little bit of friendly fire, banning out that Volibear, making sure that that can't go into the wrong hands.
Yeah, I think that's highly dependent on side advantage. And as you can see here, the Orianna the Orianna choice could have been just as well a Volibear, not only securing such a powerful pick for you, but also denying it from the enemy team.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Orianna gonna face off against Lucian Milio probably. Gonna run back the same ADC support combo again. Lucian, he's been doing his job well enough, I'd say. I don't think that you can really pinpoint any of UofT's shortcomings on what has been going on with the bot lane. Right, they've been able to hold themselves in there pretty well, and it looks like an early Ari pick as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on what that could lead us into?
I think it's a really interesting divergence back to game 1 where both teams seem to decide and say, let's forget about what we've learned in the past 3 games. It's all up in the air. Who's going to win it now? Let's make some new picks. Let's experiment with some new things, especially in the side of Harrisburg. They noticed we've lost a game. Let's refocus our power. Let's refocus our draft, and maybe even experiment here. See what works, see what didn't work, and even if they lose this, they can take something into game 5 and keep the pressure on.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at that Vi, looking at the Rakan, I mean, those are some pretty spicy picks. And then looking at the way that UofT are trying to answer that with Maokai, I mean, that's kind of... It is variable. So like we said before, this is the chance where everybody mix up their comps, right? And looking at it like that, I'm very excited, but also I'm a little bit confused as to where this is going. I mean, it's very clear that HU, they want to all in. They want that full dive. They want to have, Vi ulting in, being the sacrificial lamb, followed up by Rakan, probably one of the 2 carrying Orianna ball on top of them. Like, they're fully committing to that AoE style dive. What do you think that UofT are going to answer with?
I think they've picked a lot of the same things that they have in the past couple of days, past couple games, like you mentioned, the Milio being banned out, the Nami being banned out, UofT is forced to make some tough decisions when it comes to both the bot lane and the top lane. As you can see,
Yeah.
The Vi making for an incredible lockdown option like Camille in the first couple games. You can see Tahm Kench is the answer to that, where eating your ADC is virtually the only answer to such an engage like Vi ultimate.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at it, right, this Tahm Kench is going to be incredibly malnourished. He's probably going to be forced into the support role, and a Tahm Kench without gold not going to be very tanky at all. And I mean, looking at Sivir Renekton, I think that they do have a lot of damage. They have damage in spades, and I think Tahm Kench is going to fall over a lot more than that ETH is going to be useful. At least that's my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, you definitely have to look at the sources of damage on UofT and question whether or not they have enough. Just like you mentioned, Tahm Kench with no gold, Maokai with no gold, even a Gnar, you don't have that much damage. And as we saw in the last game, even if you have a Gnar getting a 5-man ultimate, a massive stun, if you don't have enough damage to follow it up, it means nothing. They're just going to come back and they're going to fight you right away.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
also it's key to notice the mechanics of engage here. We have UofT side, which heavily hinges around that Maokai ultimate, the Ari charm, the Gnar ultimate. On the other side, you have such easy to execute engages like the Vi ulti, which is able to be followed up by a Sivir R, a Rakan R. Putting Orianna ball on Vi essentially guarantees that whoever she's ulting is going to get a whole heap of damage placed on him.
Yeah,
What do you
and
think
I
about
mean,
that
just
interaction?
I mean, just looking at it, right? I'm not too sure where. So I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit, but I'll come back to your point in a second. Because
Mhm.
I'm not sure where exactly the Renekton is coming from. It is an interesting pick in the way that it's kind of it didn't do very well for them previously, but maybe there's something that they think that will really change this time around, and maybe they were expecting Tahm Kench to maybe be flexed at the top lane, which is why they made the decisions that they did. But not coming out on R5 really kind of stops Renekton's plans, and I think that is going to shut them down pretty well there. As for how it comes to UofT trying to circumvent HU's dives, that I'm a lot more indecisive. I mean, I do think that HU are going to have to mix up their strategy a lot when it comes to how they engage onto the team. And they're going to have to probably do a little bit more poking than they might be comfortable with. Because as long as Tahm Kench has the HP to be able to position next solution, it's going to be really, really difficult to dive on top of him. But the upside is that Tahm Kench doesn't have a lot of HP because he's going to be working on a support income, probably Knight's Vow, maybe Locket. He's not going to have those tank stats that he so desperately needs.
I think the difference here, that while you have that saving grace in Tahm Kench, you also have to consider the way that HSU has built the rest of their draft.
Yeah.
It is no longer that they only have that Camille ultimate to decide to engage fights. They have three of some of the best engage making abilities in Sivir, Rakan, and Vi to be able to choose and take those fights which they want to take.
Yeah.
Pressing any advantage or even a numbers advantage in a jungle skirmish or a bot lane dive that they've shown to be so competent at in the past couple games.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm really glad that you mentioned HU's Sivir, especially the ultimate, because that is a very, very strong playmaking tool, whether it comes to team fights or just 2v2s, right? Because we've seen those situations a lot where UFT is trying to push up, where they find themselves with a bad lane state, where they have to walk up, they have to make those plays where they push a little bit outside of their comfort zone, and having Sivir ult, having Rakan especially, is really, really key to punishing them
Mhm.
and trying to make sure that they don't get away with too much.
And I think the question of your doubt of the Renekton pick actually slots
Mhm.
into that team comp somewhat, where Renekton is almost a vacuum answer to what happens when we don't have enough resources to go around. Sivir loves eating up those side waves, loves clearing
Mhm.
all the CS that she can to get pushed ahead in those CS advantages.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I mean, now that you pointed out, Renekton is a decent, low economy option, especially when you have to surrender a lot of that farm to your ADC to make sure that they stay strong, that they're able to build, a third, fourth item by 30 minutes, making sure that they are, ahead of the power curve. But looking at things all around, I mean, we're just going to have to see how, especially they perform in their own lanes. Right? Is it going to be another top gap? Are we going to see any solo kills? Is mid going to be more explosive than these champions might suggest? These are all questions that we don't really have answers to quite yet until we actually get into the thick of things.
And here we are into game 4. I must say haven't been excited for any other games as I have been this specific one, as it once again decides the series and whether or not UofT can claw themselves back into a 2-2 game point for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the magic is going to happen. And we've seen last match, they showed up when it mattered. They made the plays, they had the hero moments. And I want that to continue, but I also don't want them to rely on them.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing from this draft and seeing the kind of champions that they've picked and the way that they've sort of countermatched HU's theme pretty well, I'm looking forward to this. And it's going to be a whole new set of matchups as well compared to what we've seen before. Yeah, so Lucian trying to take a little bit of an aggressive stance didn't really end up paying off, however, as Barlow is opting into Q start to make sure that he has that little bit of extra sustain.
I think you can see how much more eager bot lane is to fight
Mhm.
as compared to the first couple games. They look as
Yeah.
though, definitely on UofT side, as if they are the deciding factor, as if they are the ones that have to win lane to make sure that their team is on the front foot for the rest of this game. As if, and I think this is likely the same perspective that HSU is taking, that a
Mhm.
Sivir lane is much more willing to sit back, wait for their levels, wait for that level 6 spike as you were talking about before,
Yeah.
and to play for more team focused objectives, whereas UofT must win at all costs.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, these teams, even though their thematics are pretty different, their power curves are actually pretty similarly matched. I think that both of these teams are going to scale decently well into the mid slash late game because we haven't seen anything go turbo late just yet. I think that this is going to really depend on the individual plays that the players make, more so than any of the other series we've kind of seen so far, or matches we've seen so far in the series. You know, Tom Kench with a nice little engaged Michael, just barely able to dodge it. The Guardian does activate from Barlow to make sure that those HP losses are kept to a minimum. Now, Landcry's paying the heaviest fee out of everybody, getting forced to pop or one of his cookies, but he still holds on to his paw just for a later moment.
I'd like to actually bring up something you mentioned earlier on in these Lucian picks for Landkreis.
Hmm.
The range disadvantage that he's going to be at, even against Sivir, puts him really at risk for all these engage options that HSU have.
Yeah,
That
exactly. Now,
Rakan'd
Landcry's with a nice dash out from Barlow. I think gonna proc press the attack, not gonna get too much extra damage on top of it. CY Blood posturing pretty aggressively. And this is looking like he's going to be forced into a recall. Nope, it looks like Michael wants to take things a little more aggressively, and CY Blood with the flash W, gets caught under the turret, and that's going to be a flash forward from Michael. Ignite, not enough to secure the kill, and everybody's just going to be at a standstill.
What do you think about that summoner trade right there as Landkreis loses heal for Michael's flash?
Hey, I mean, we saw just a lot more than just Michael's flash. We also saw Barlow's Ignite, and failing to get a kill off of both of those sums, that's a lot of a lot of the damage potential and a lot of the damage threats just kind of being neutralized by that trade. So even though CY Blood is going to be a little bit upset that he wasn't able to secure a kill, I think all things considered, it's not that bad of a situation.
Definitely. And even though it's not that bad, I still think he will be um pained from the wasting of the flash, just like how we saw how important his flash was in the last game, allowing him to make those decisive picks, which just can't be made without flash. In
Yep.
comparison, he still has that hex flash, able to make sort of a creative advantage, maybe some creative gank paths, maybe a setup in a bush,
Hmm.
which HSU is not able to see. But it still leaves a lot to be desired as compared to that straight up flash advantage, which you lose in such a failed gank as we saw just before.
Yep. Now we're gonna see Tom Kench walking up a little bit, just trying to harass the Vi, perhaps, or was he just warding? You can't really tell sometimes. But it does look like Kid Beats is going to be dropping very, very low. Gets stunned, but Renekton is there to answer first, and CY Blood is just knocked way too far into the back line, and it's going to be first blood. I think that there was a little bit of a miscalculation there.
Definitely, as Notice was still top lane farming his waves as they went to
Hmm.
engage deep into their jungle. I guess UofT assumed that Barlow wouldn't have matched them,
Hmm.
and yet they still get caught out there and lose first blood for it.
Yeah, and now that we're just looking at it, right now that we've had a moment to take a peek, like a peek behind the curtain and see everything that's happening. I mean, this is a really awkward position for UofT to be in. Is it looked like they were setting up for a Void Grubs for Dragon Trade, but what wasn't precedented was that Vi would be in the bush. So now with Vi coming up towards Void Grubs, now they're in a peculiar spot where they're not really able to force the Drake because they have a Maokai who doesn't have that kind of damage early on. But then also Vi is looking like she's ready to get those Void Grubs for herself.
Definitely, and we're seeing a jungle dynamic which hadn't occurred in the past couple games.
Yeah.
Even with the Volibear, while he represents a sort of bruiser alternative, still has quite a bit of damage as compared to the Maokai. Sort of
Yep.
this choice forces UofT's jungler to hinge much more on their laner's choices. As you can see here, bot lane getting that pressure, allowing him to push up into the dragon, and allowing Laurent to roam into their jungle, play some wards in bot side, and
Yeah.
relieve some pressure mid.
Yeah, and I mean, just the way that things are kind of working out, this is going to be like one of the lowest dragons I've seen in a hot minute, but they are going to secure it eventually. And that is going to be a lot of time wasted and a lot of opportunities kind of gone, both for TY Blood himself, but also for his teammates, for Lankrise, for Yumi Princess. And Notice is taken down by a quick gank in the top lane. Looks like he didn't have any summoner spells available and was in Mididar form, so he's not going to have way too many recourses there. And it did look like Vi ult and Renekton ults were also used, so that's going to buy themselves a little bit of time when it comes to, Vi making those big in-depth all-ins, and we'll have to see how that plays out overall.
What do you think about the difference in the jungle top dynamic? Oh,
Yeah,
as we see the
big flash
engage.
forward from Barlow, knocking up the Maokai, and not just that. 9 months later, he's going to have to respawn because that was Ignite as well to finish the deal. And, that was a lot of damage onto Blood, and just wasn't able to cope with it right away. Sorry, you
Yeah,
were
and
saying?
we're seeing just exactly the type of engage opportunities that HSU has available practically at all times. It doesn't just have to be that Vi flashing, dashing, ultimating on. You can also leave it up to the support, which I'm afraid Tom Kench simply does not have the same amount of. Sure, he
Yeah.
does have that W engage, but it's not nearly as potent as Rakan, nor nearly as immediate as that engages, sort of allowing for HSU to pick and choose their fights and play around UofT's decision making rather than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. And now, as things are continuing forwards, you're going to see a lot more pressure from HSU just onto the bottom side of the map overall. And with Sipper getting that kill, it is going to kind of catapult forwards her item gain and the ability to complete those items, especially since she does have the cull as well.
Definitely, I think some of the lane dynamics we're already seeing play out as CS is traded between Lucian and Sivir. Summoners are coming back up, and everyone looks to reset for objective control. We're looking
Mhm.
at a reorganizing of the team that I think both sides know what they want out of this. Both sides know what they're playing for. They know what they have to do. It's the execution and what truly happens in reality that decides um, whether these teams are truly prepared.
Yep, and now Ego popping Renekton ults, just trying to punish Notice for even walking up. Looks like Vi, again, just trying to repeat what happened earlier. Not going to get in range of the Vi ulti. And Blood as well for the back. Now it's going to be a double TP on the top lane. It's going to be an ultimate party, perhaps. As now this is a 3 versus 3. Oops, all top lane. And looks like everybody's just going to be forced to back off, and Gnar is going to try and take his recall where he can.
I think this is in the best interests of UofT to stick around as they see someone get picked off. You're seeing that sort of faltering in decision making, which sort of plagued them in the first couple games. Sure, they're able to reply here, but is the pick going to make it worth it?
Yeah, okay, so there you go. There's Orianna. She's low HP, but oh no, everybody on UofT has been grouped, all swallowed up together. Blood manages to secure the kill onto Orianna, and now Gnar is TPing down. It looked very, very dire for a moment, but it's okay. They were able to pull it back together. Now Barlow running for his life. Can he make it out alive? Nope. Tom Kench flashes over the wall to secure that kill. Oh, no, did I speak too soon, as the level up is able to keep him running a little bit longer. And in the end, it actually came back to bite him a bit in the bud, because that is going to give the kill over to Ari instead of Tom Kench.
And on the flip side of what I was talking about on the that top side engage, you can see that HSU did not notice that UofT had that TP advantage. They were able to fight with that in that 3v3, even take a massive Rakan engage to the face and still come out on top because they had that numbers advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And now just looking at it, they are very comfortable now. Michael gonna farm from the safety of his own turrets, backed up by Barlow, just making it a little bit late. Vi gonna look for a play on the ball lane, but Tom Kench manages to recall just in time, leaving Lucian a little bit hung out and dry if they just do decide to go for a tower dive. Blood is here to back him up, make sure that he provides a little bit of vision as well through his control ward. But Vi is still hungry. She is looking for those picks, and she is ready to go deeper if necessary. Now, Camtech Drake is going to be the next one that is available, and HU are going to start it.
Here we can see a splitting of objectives, and where before HSU seemed happy to concede both Drakes for grubs, it looks like here they're much more relying on a contesting of Drakes.
Yeah, ooh, Infernal Soul.
Both of them
First one so far.
I would even say Infernal Soul makes their decision worth it, where they're much happier conceding the possibility of grubs for the ability to push into Infernal Soul.
Yeah, and I mean, both teams now are going to be pretty comfortable. A little bit of a misread from Blood. Thought that the Vi was going to be around her blue, but instead was just hiding out and try brush a little bit north. Meanwhile, Lancry is taking down low HP by an Ignite that we saw off screen, and the ult follow up as well. Nice job from both of the bot laners on the side of UofT. Just trying to secure the kill now onto Barlow. Oh, taking down the low HP, but yep, Tom Kench, there's that shield just basically filling up his entire health bar.
Incredibly well disciplined, perfectly played dive. Great W by Laurent. I think that was possibly the best play that UofT's bot lane has had so far, really showing that their mechanical advantage can make them not only win the game, but push their advantage as a team as a whole. As we can see, the gold in the top here has finally evened out as red team gets that first turret, pushing them 2,000 gold ahead. On top of that, this means the Rift Herald is far less valuable, as that first tower gold has already been claimed. What do you think about this objective decision making? Do you think it informs how both teams play?
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams are playing a lot more to secure the deal, and that was a pretty done and shut deal from Gnar. As soon as he saw the Vi reticle on top of his head, I'm sure he knew immediately what was about to happen. Good job saving the flash, though. And that's going to become pretty useful, pretty critical with the upcoming Drakes and potential fights down the road, right? That flash Gnar ult is going to be something to watch out for sure.
Definitely. I think it's interesting how your mention of a top lane pick has influenced decision making here as an
Mhm.
engage comes in under mid tower.
You know, Tom Kench getting a little bit greedy with it, but that's okay. He wanted to set up a knock up into Charm. Fortunately, it wasn't quite able to work out that way as Barlow had a nice read onto it. Now it's going to be 4 characters for UFT hovering mid. That's going to be a little bit of a numbers advantage. Never mind. Tie that up with Renekton as well. And like you mentioned before, Renekton, he just wants to kind of come up here and be up in everybody's face. He doesn't really care too much about missing a little bit of CS here, a little bit of CS there. I mean, he already has his Eclipse completed.
Mhm. I think also importantly to note is how both teams have been playing around their picks. Like you mentioned,
Hmm.
Renekton is happy having no gold, but on the flip side, isn't that happy being the focal point of an entire team comp? Like such that they've been playing around top side so much, they've gotten top tower. I'm sure HSU would much rather have all that gold on their Sivir, on their AD carry, which likely is going to be their real focal point around team fights, around carrying the damage, around who's
Yeah.
truly going to win this game.
Yeah, exactly. And now, just looking at the way things are playing out, Nar 0-3, he's able to complete his Triforce, which is really, really good. Not that far behind in terms of items at all, especially with the mediocre but still present kind of CS lead that he did have. And looking at it, I think that the way things have played out overall, from being a pretty disastrous start for UFT at the beginning, dropping 2 to 3 kills, now to where they are being, pretty much even slash slightly ahead in gold. It's a pretty nice spot to be in. They've been able to use the raw amount of power from their champion picks, actually in the early game, to kind of bring that back. Now, Maokai ult's gonna go astray, but that's okay because Ari with a nice little charm, following up with the ult as well, just making sure. Nope, never mind. I must have just jinxed it right there because Duckman is able to walk away just a little bit longer while Vi and Rakan are there to follow up. Changing targets are like, okay, Oriana's a little bit too far away. Let's go in. Now, Rakan does land a knockup, but that is probably going to be his death. No, they're able to walk away just further. This fight just keeps on going and going and going. I just don't know when it's going to end. And that's going to be a double kill for HU as UofT. They just kept going that little bit further, that little bit further. You're so close to these kills, and they're just not able to get them.
And
Duck does fall in the fray, though, so that is okay. They got the target that they wanted originally, but they still massively overextended for what ended up being a 1-for-2 trade.
and it looks like their greed finally got to them as Notice in the top lane is able to get that counter pick back. Um, it feels as though they could be incredibly up here, and instead, the gold lead has once again evened out into a pretty equal 30k gold split. In comparison, HSU is able to get priority on this dragon, is able to put pressure on Landkreis and on the TPs that are forced to be pulled out here.
Yep. Now, Kid Beats narrowly whiffs the charged Q. The Rocket Punch doesn't really connect with the Lucian, but Lucian's taken down low enough, and yes, Silver's able to find the kill. But Tom Kench, combined with the Infernal Drake, are able to do enough damage to take her down. Now, a matching TP is coming out from the Renekton, going to make sure that there are no more shenaniganeries as Tom Kench gets taken out mid-tunnel. Okay,
And
that fight was interesting. Infernal Drake, well, you do want to fight for it. Engaging that hard with a man down is a little bit questionable.
definitely, especially as this is only second Drake, not even informing who's going to get soul or soul point.
Yeah.
Both teams still have opportunities to get themselves objectively back in the game, but UofT choose to throw quite a bit of gold, quite a bit of investment, as you can see in the summoners on the right, into
Yeah.
a lost fight, potentially putting them at a disadvantage for this Baron, which is, in my mind, far more important coming up in 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is definitely putting them at a disadvantage. Lucian is now trying to dash forward in the middle of the lane, just trying to, you know, make things work. It does look like it's going to be a bit of a pause, though.
Pause
Potentially
coming out.
potentially a tech problem of some sorts. It's typically what happens when there is
Mm-hmm.
a pause break like that. Hopefully, it will be resolved soon, though. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just like reflecting on the state of the game as it is right now, with HU having 2 Drakes, with the gold being pretty close, but UFT still being like a little bit ahead. Where do you think things are going to go from here?
I think the game really complicates as we transition from early game out of lanes into mid, even late game, and people start getting their items. Like you mentioned before, that second item power spike is so important to certain champions, especially to those carries who exponentially scale in damage, who are really looking for the breakpoints which push their champion past just a part of the team and into the carry of the team. The Lucian ability to dish out that damage once he's reached the items that he needs can potentially put him on par to go toe to toe with Sivir, to go toe to toe with Vi, even if they land influential ultis, which they have throughout the game. Do you think
Yeah, and sorry, no,
sorry.
you go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you think, the influence of such abilities really changes as not only do, respawn timers get longer, but also
Mhm.
as, fights become more coherent as a 5v5?
Yeah, I mean, especially as the team fights are going to become more coherent, everybody's going to be able to stage ahead of time. And I mean, leading into this replay, even we can see that as things start to move away from this more sort of skirmishy sort of playstyle, we're going to see a lot more value getting squeezed out of HU's champions, and they're going to be able to use their abilities a lot more cohesively.
Definitely. Do you think one team will rather that 5v5 team fight than the other? Or do you think both or one team or another will try to avoid it entirely?
I think ultimately, both teams are pretty well geared towards that 5v5 fight. They both do want it to go that far, especially with HU running that sort of counter comp. Now, it does look like the game was unpaused, so thankfully everybody is back and ready to go. Vi with a little bit of a Herald Slam, getting a little cheeky with it, but that's okay. She is able to walk away from it without being punished nearly at all.
I think it's
Both
pretty
teams are coming up to a little bit of a head here, though, in the mid lane, and uh,
another pause.
I bye.
And we're back
All
into it.
right, we're in it.
Sorry for the pause. Uh, it
Yeah,
looks like we
that
may be having some technical difficulties. Please stay with us if that is true. We hope there's no more in the rest of the game, but no promises.
fingers crossed that nothing else comes up. Now Barlow is going to be his team's engaged member. Usually it's Vi who's going to be the one leading the charge, but it's okay for Rakan to as well. Looking at the way that the item distribution has kind of worked out, what are you thinking going into this next rake is going to be, kind of the game plan? Is going to be a 5v5, or are we going to see a 4v4? Is it going to be potentially a give? What do you think is going to come up?
I think a lot of HSU's performance, especially in their team composition, is in their pushing power. So
Hmm.
while both teams look to secure objectives, obviously Baron is good for you no matter what team comp you are.
Hmm.
One team is much easier to deal with Baron minions, and one is not. Thus, should it come to a head, I think likely UofT is going to look to maybe split, maybe pressure a side objective, maybe even
Hmm.
the Baron so that neither team can get it. Say, if I can't have it, no one will. And push, like we can see here, an advantage on the bot tower, maybe
Yep.
a perspective inhibitor tower.
A top and mid 2v2 happening, but Notice just catches so many strays as he's forced to flash away. Now, Ego getting dropped very low HP, but Duckman is able to save him just for a little bit. Now, that is going to be the item shield saving him, or at least detracting Yumi Princess from chasing that further.
Neither team really getting a clear advantage in any of these
Yeah.
fights. Just looking to test their leads, test their limits, see
Hmm.
where their champions can get them, and whether one decision can be the deciding factor in how this game ends up. I think right now we're standing right on a pin where both teams are just as likely to beat each other
Yeah.
if push comes to shove, and yet neither of them are willing to take what it takes to push each other to the limits.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can certainly see UofT. They want to force it. They want to fight right here, right now, and they will emerge. But it doesn't seem like it is going to that full length. It doesn't look like they're going the full distance and not really able to stop HEO from slipping through their fingers and making their way away. Now, everything is going to come to a head, though, at this next Drake, which I don't really suspect either team will be too happy to give.
Definitely, especially on UofT side where they see that impending Infernal Soul as a way that HSU can close out the game. I know you've felt it. It feels terrible to be able to be hit with such a splash of damage of an Infernal Soul, completely pushing this massive damage comp, as you mentioned before, into the hands of HSU. I'm sure UofT themselves would be happy with an Infernal Soul as we see the engage coming here.
Yep, Tom Kench being the subject of the engage isn't too big of a deal, but nice knock up onto the Vi. Now the Eat coming out onto Lucian, making sure that he stays alive and is able to survive through the Vi. A little bit of a dash away. He's going to be able to somewhat tank the Renekton engage. And there you go, that's Renekton being very big. Sad as Gnar gets a massive R, big shove. And that is going to be a pretty decisive fight win for UofT, as that's 4 kills. Not really able to secure the 5th for a team kill, but it's just the support that's alive.
Incredible win, and I have to highlight here the performance from the bot laners, both on the side of Lauren and Lancrease, able to peel off of those diving engagers, not only the Vi, but also the Renekton dashing onto them to survive it, to heal it, and to dish out that damage back onto him to win the fight and secure the objective.
I mean, they were both incredibly comfortable. They knew what their limits were, and they knew how to engage properly. I mean, going into the replay, let's break it down.
Just like you mentioned, the Tom Kench getting engaged here is really key, as both Vi and Rakan have used their abilities. They're unable to combo that on Lucian, who eventually gets out, dashes away from the Renekton, is able to turn on him, heal up, ultimate, and turn the entire fight into
I'm getting word though. There is an Infernal Dragon fight happening, and it's 60 HP, and Lancrease secures it with a W. That's his least damaging ability. Oh my god, what a flip down to the last bit of health. Down to the last teeny tiny little bit. And I mean, what should have just been a given, just I don't even know how they found their way back in.
And just like I mentioned the last one, it seems like HSU lacks the damage to close out these picks on their carries. They're able to have the Vi ulting in, they're able to have the Renekton ulting in, but it means nothing if you're not able to kill that massive damage source that's pumping it out at you. You've got to be able to.
This is where the gold lead is starting to develop. UofT are pulling away. They are 7k gold ahead. They have 3 more kills, and the situation with Drakes is completely even now.
Not only that, I think HSU's game plan becomes a whole lot more complicated, as UofT have these options of split pushing, have these options of playstyle diversity, which HSU just don't have access to. They're forced to do these engages no matter whether they want to or not, because that's the only thing that their champs have been picked into. You can't play a pick comp around something else. You're forced to try to make these picks, even if, in this case, they're bad for you, as we can see this dragon fight playing out.
Yeah, and I mean, just there, it came down to the very last wire. 61 health exactly in the Infernal Drake. I mean, Lucian being able to secure that for his team, that just turned an already really good situation into an amazing one, right? Denying HU from that potential win condition and stopping them from going, okay, we can hold out just a little bit longer for that Infernal Soul, which is just so powerful already. I mean, that was really, really key. And now Blood engaging with the twisting advance, making sure that the Maokai R catches 3, but he's going to be forced to ult out. No, Gnar whiffs his ultimate as well, and he's drawn back down to such low HP. Everybody on UofT is just incredibly low, except for the Aryan. And they are incredibly lucky to make it out of this one alive.
Definitely. I think we're seeing what we saw in the past couple games as a faltering in team fights, where this game instead, UofT is able to decide where their limits are, decide that, yeah, we've gotten enough, we've gotten mid tower, we've gotten the objectives we need to push this game into where we need it to be, and they're happy backing out and taking their lead to where it leads them next.
Yeah, exactly. And now looking, we've already established, right, that the gold advantage is pretty large, but how does that really translate into the items and into the individual carries on both teams.
It's definitely a question of resource usage when you're thinking about the difference between the carries on the two teams and what champions can do with the items they acquired. Sivir is really hungry for that CS. Almost all her kit revolving around her ability to clear waves, to do that AoE damage. That if you if you do not have the items, you cannot fuel that machine. You can't fuel the damage which is meant to push your team into winning team fights. And as a result, you can see the effects of that. Their team fight falters. Their execution on the final third of health on Lucian has failed to come through. Sivir hasn't been able to close out the front line either, leaving UofT in a position that makes their team composition look better.
Yeah, and I mean, what happened, what came from what was once a really neutral situation, a really even draft, and even from HU's early advantages, we're just seeing this come back around and almost kind of being flipped on them. Now the inhibitor is almost going to fall, but Vi with the nice flash Q, not going to have, not going to engage further with the ultimate though. He's just saving it a little bit longer and ults the Tahm Kench instead. Now Lucian getting dragged around further into the team fight as Tahm Kench eats Maokai. Like, now, moments like that make you wonder if it was intentional or not. That's going to be 3 kills for the price of none.
I think HSU finally noticed what they had to do, which was, as you mentioned, bursting down the low health Tahm Kench, who doesn't have the opportunity to eat his ADC and save him. I noticed there actually, as we see the replay, Tahm Kench holding the ultimate ability, both bot laners feeling as though they're safe until that ultimate and that combo of damage comes in, able to burst out and CC the Tahm Kench while also pushing the Lucian down to dangerous levels of health and eventually killing him.
Yeah, I mean, the way especially that both Maokai and Tahm Kench were shoved in the same direction, were almost on top of each other. It kind of does lead me to the conclusion that that was perhaps an accident instead of an intentional eat from the Tahm Kench, which was unfortunate, but that was just, I would put it more on HSU playing it well than Tahm Kench making a misplay.
Definitely. And if you're thinking about nuances of mechanics like warding on Thresh's Lantern, the ability to cover your ADC, maybe body block the enemy ADC so that it's harder for Tahm Kench, as we see this engage coming in. Tahm Kench getting hit, and all 5 fighting for it. The Vi ultimate coming in.
Yeah, Vi going deep. Sacrifice she will, but does it get anything? No, it does not. And Ari using that race to try and find the kill into Barlow. But Barlow is able to make it away, and now they're just going to have to settle with a Baron take instead.
And you can see the sort of ebbs and flows of both teams' power as Lucian's back in the fight, able to dish that damage out, which they were lacking in the pick earlier, and able to push pressure onto these objectives, which HSU simply cannot respond to.
Yeah, exactly. And now, going in further, right, now that, even though the gold lead is still open, you got one more Infernal Drake that is sole point for HSU, and they are going to be fighting tooth and nail for this. And yeah, oh my god, Ari dies, sending 800 gold into Sivir's way.
Even more unfortunately, while using ultimate, a very key ability, as we saw in the last game, that flash charm is a devastating ability to pull out on a carry or an important person of interest late into the game, which now won't be of access even while Ari sits in respawn queue.
Yeah, and now going in further, right? I mean, it's almost like they heard me. They're like, okay, you know what? Hold my beer. We've got this. And now HSU, they're on, this is pretty much the most level playing field they've been in all match. Both ADCs have 4 items. You've got your mid, your jungle, and your top looking pretty closely matched, although you see Renekton slipping behind as he does. Right, that Renekton is going to be the weak link, and I'm not sure if he's going to be really that useful anymore going further. Or that might just be Renekton's slander as Lucian gets Vi-ulted, but eaten instead by Tahm Kench trying to save him. But no, it's just They got caught out, they got engaged on, and that Silver R as well just gave them the amount of speed that they needed to complete it. And now the game is spiraling rapidly out of UFT's control.
While I think that I agree with you, it's a pretty bad mistake from the side of UofT, leaving their bot lane so vulnerable like that. I don't think it's a game ender. As we can see, the objectives aren't near coming up. At best, HSU can look to put pressure, as we can see on the top side here, maybe put pressure on a bountied tower, but really they get nothing out of those kills other than the two respawn timers, which they're forced to recall over, not really securing anything for their kill advantages. Where
Yeah, well, I recognize your points. They did not get any objectives, and they aren't that much closer to securing the Infernal Drake off of those picks. I want to say it does set a dangerous precedent where UofT are starting to let the ball slip just a little bit, like we've seen them do countless times before.
I think the difference here is what objective controls and what makes of it in this team fight here.
Yeah, Maokai with a twisting advance, trying to engage, doesn't catch anybody, but Ego, again, low HP. Renekton's walls are made out of paper, as he just cannot stop anybody from advancing on top of him. And now HSU are forced to back up as far as possible before they're even allowed to think about recalling. Now, 55 seconds left on the Infernal Drake. They still have a lot of time to heal up and then reinitiate as a team.
And this is exactly where UofT want to be. That Maokai sapling all the bushes, forcing a one-sided entrance into the dragon area. They're able to look for these picks. They're able to set up such advantages that makes their team fights worth it. That makes them better in cases where you would think that HSU has the ultimate abilities to close it out.
Yeah, and I mean, now that we're heading deeper into this, it seems like HSU are just running for the hills, but they're trying to bait them in, using the bush to turn around this fight. Maokai ult, really big, catching Barlow, making sure that he's not able to make use of any of his mobility, any of his catch potential. Lancry is finding an early pick, but he does get caught, sent airborne, and he's not going to come back down. All it is a corpse, as Orianna also finds the kill on Tahm Kench. And, things might be spiraling a little bit out of control, as they are going to go for the game ender.
Definitely. I would like to notice in the bottom right, Ari just teleported about 100 meters into mid lane for some reason. I'm not quite sure what that was for. Now,
Well, it could have been to potentially save the minion and then trying and keep its HP up. I didn't catch if it was the cannon minion or not, but it doesn't look like it's going to pay off nearly as much as they would have hoped for, because Ari is here, Maokai is here, and they are able to clear the wave.
it does look as though UofT have actually been put on the back foot here, where that team fight seemed to be on their terms. We can see the replay here and what went wrong. Hope you got all that. Went quite quick.
You know what? I think we're going to have to replay that one again, because that one a little too fast for my eyes. I know we're getting a bit wary, but I don't think it's that tiring just yet. And I mean, looking at the Maokai engage, what do you spot here? What was the blunder?
I think you need to focus on where the ADCs are and what access they have. You see Sivir in the back able to dish out that damage consistently and safely, whereas Lucian's forced to go almost melee range with a Rakan, get hit by the charm, get hit with a knockup, and ultimately decide the fight, because one side no longer has their damage source.
Yeah, and I do definitely think as well, Lancry's getting caught there. I think he got caught by the Orianna Shockwave, the Orianna's ultimate, and then followed up by the Rakan knockup, and as you saw, he just did not come back down. He got sent to the moon. Lucian being so fragile and losing so much of his HP to just so much burst, there was absolutely no way to save him, especially even if Tahm Kench was still there to eat him. I don't think the reaction time is necessarily there.
I think at some point in the game as well, you find it difficult with Tahm Kench to be able to save your ADC, whereas in the earlier fights, you're able to stall, wait out for some damage, wait out for that Vi ultimate. You're no longer able to do that when all of a sudden everyone on the enemy team is able to one-shot you.
Now the fight is being brought into UofT's home base. Sorry for cutting in. But then Ari is just stuck behind enemy lines. She looks like she wants to catch somebody off guard, but that's just way more than she bargained for. Now she's forced on the retreat, burning all of her ultimate charges just to get away.
And it looks like HSU is going to turn and engage back on them here.
Yep, nice E from Tom Kench, making sure that Lucian lives to fight another day, but Tom Kench unfortunately himself does not, as Michael is forced to retreat just a little bit. Oh, nice punch onto Vi, but Vi does manage to survive with just a little bit of luck and a flash to her name.
Looks like they might be going on to Baron here. An interesting call, maybe potentially fueled by desperation as UofT look to contest that. The Baron burning down. Look how much damage they're able to put out on that, even while UofT.
Nice charm from the Ahri, securing the kill onto Oriana. Baron does get taken by blue side, but that's A-okay if they're able to get the team kill. Now, Michael forced to run for the hills, and UofT are stuck looking at their choices. It's like, what do you do? What advantages do you push? They're not even able to kill Michael.
Here in almost a standstill, Michael is able to turn it around.
First, Ahri just got it, and Gnar follows soon after. Now, Lucian and Maokai are trying to clear out as much of the base as they can, getting 2 inhibitors for their trouble, which is just not enough. Sivir's on a tear.
Yeah, and you can see the impact that Infernal Drake has on the damage output.
Yep. No, actually, no. Sorry to cut in, but Tompkins was able to stop Sivir's recall, and now it looks like they're going to be able to collapse on her while she's running for the hills. She has no way out of this conceivable unless she's able to kill both of them. Or kill all 3, actually. And it looks like she might be able to do it as Landcries gets taken down very, very low HP thanks to the Infernal Soul damage. And no, Tom Kench does secure the shutdown gold. And you know what? That's okay, as long as she is dead. And that's looks like it's gonna be only 1 Baron left alive, as Barlow is trying to just engage deeper and deeper and make sure that UofT pay with their lives for this. Oriana with the TP behind, but Tom Kench with a nicely timed eat. Blood trying to flash back onto the Oriana, trying to do as much as he can. Landcry is getting taken down low HP, gonna be finished off by Ego in just a second. Never mind, Oriana gets the double, Oriana gets the triple, and that seems to be match.
And again, we can see another teleport from Ahri in here as she hopes to get something.
Yeah. Looking for a little bit of an off-angle pick, but she is going to be forced out again. Look, a little bit of deja vu as Ahri wasted her ultimate, and she's also not able to capture that wave. Now, big TP forward, making sure that at least one of the minions does survive the anti-wave push. Notice with the GA, just trying to bide for as much time as he can. Meanwhile, Divide does decide to engage deep on him. Yep, now CC into CC into CC. Let's go. Gnar ult's just trying to stop them from advancing as much as possible. Edge of Night. No, sorry, what is that? Banshee's Veil purchased for the Ahri. Wrong item call out. But Ego just going further and making sure that she doesn't have that spell shield when it matters most. And now the inhibitor is respawned and it's going to buy them a tiny bit more time.
I think it buys them more than a tiny bit of more time. Lucian spawning here. Looks like they want to take this 3v5 if they're going to force it, whereas HSU looks a little indecisive on what they want to do, whether they're pushing
the inhibitors combined with the super means didn't buy them enough time, but Vi is going to ult in on the Lucian. Tom Kench does get the eat off in time. What a hero play. Tom forced to back off a little bit further, but Blood taken down, and that's going to be the Nexus Tower, and Lucian soon to follow. And there you go. That is match point, series point. That is going to be HSU advancing to the next stage of playoffs, and is UofT forced to go home.
Man, what a finish, I must say. What do you think about that?
Close, we were right there.
Final plays that really influenced that final win. Do you think there was one pivotal moment that really made HSU's series?
I mean, it was so close, right? We got there. Once the team warmed up, once we hit map 3, you saw UofT come alive in a way that they just hadn't before. But just the situation leading up to that, it was just too slow. They took too much time, and they just tried too many times the same repeated strategies, and they weren't able to make it stick. And I think that although UofT, they did put up a good fight at the end, if it was just a little bit earlier, then we could have potentially seen a bit more of a competitive series.
Definitely. I think that's really shown in how often they picked that Lucian bot lane and how confident they seemed to feel with their champion choices. They were just maybe mere millimeters away from execution that maybe a Rakan W or some sign of stray CC really throws a wrench into the works, really messes up that game plan that was going so well in game 3, that seemed to be going so well with their gold advantage in game 4.
Yeah, I mean, they had it. They were in control. They were in the driver's seat. They neutralized both the Drake lead as well as the kill lead, and they were trying to take as much as they could. But they just when push came to shove, and it shoved hard, HSU were just able to come out on top. And I mean, it was just a lot to deal with at once. Now let's take a little bit of a replay, a look at one of the deciding fights in that last match.
You can see here, Lucian expending his ultimate early and getting incredibly low, forced to heal back up on the wave, pushing him back into the range of Renekton. As you can see, all the multiplicity of HSU's engage opportunities here used, and the flank of the Orianna.
Yeah, I mean, they got the kill onto the Orianna. That was a really, really well-timed play, especially from the Tomken stopping a recall and forcing her to run into the top lane. But it was just super unfortunate that they just didn't take the kill and run. They tried to force harder, they tried to commit deeper, and that just led them into the final party that did end up being the last, few minutes of that game.
And you're able to be so much more influential as 5, as you mentioned, while you are able to get that pick on Orianna. It doesn't matter unless you're able to make something of it. And clearly, HSU are more willing to make something of their picks following this fight. As you can see, pushing under the tower, pushing their advantage, pushing what until this point looked like a 1 game for UofT into the hands of HSU.
Yeah, I mean, one can only wonder what would have happened if, say, that fight did not end that way, and they were able to get one more 5v5. You could have seen us go to map 5. We could have gone to, potentially gone on to the semifinals to, rematch Waterloo or test our might against Western. But it does look like HSU is going to take that instead, and I wish them all the best of luck in the future of the playoffs and beyond.
What a great series, I must say. I think both teams really showed their prowess, showed their confidence, showed their abilities across all lanes. And even though UofT goes down 3-1, I don't think they have anything to be ashamed of. If anything, this works as a great jumping off point, a great learning opportunity for what they can use, what they can change, and what they can utilize for their next wins.
Yeah, I'm sure that the league team can say with their chest pumped out high, we are a top 8 team in the East, and we are coming for this spot next semester, and they will do better. And I'm a firm believer of that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, how this team evolves and where we go in the future. But as for right now, that's going to be all we have for you today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your long weekend and have a good day. Goodbye.